welcome to RLAfterShock, the lone-standing weekly independent podcast for everything that is Rocket League esports in the European scene and the coverage hub for everything that is Rocket League news, rumors, and results. I'm the Eternal J. I'm joined by Digital Bacon for the 73rd episode of the show this week, my man. The last time I spoke to you was actually during the recording of the last episode, so how you been?
Yeah, it's been a long week, of course. Rocket League was
that
a little bit
seems to be your
quiet.
standard introduction, by the way. You just go,
does.
oh, it's been a long week.
And
you know,
I will say, Jay, that whenever you do your little intro, like it just brings a smile to my face. It's like, oh yeah, another podcast, like another aftershock. I'm loving this. And
bro, I remember, what was it? It's great that you get that feeling because it just shows we're not being burnt out. Because what was it? Samuel made a comment on one of our tweets last week when we were going live, saying 72 episodes. Fucking hell, you guys have gone forever. I'm just like, yeah, that is almost been a year and a half since we started the show, and I'm glad that we're still going to this day, doing almost an episode every single week since that point, Bacon. Like, that's a fucking achievement if I ever heard one, you know?
Yeah, we're really proud of ourselves. If you haven't, got that impression by how Jay's phrased that. We've taken a couple of weeks off every now and then because like we had to. There was either nothing to literally report that week or like we couldn't feasibly work that into our schedules, but whenever we can, like it's currently 1:06 in the afternoon on a Monday. Like, we're going to put that in. Like, we've gone with the times. We haven't stuck to just Twitch. We've moved to purely the podcast because we want to get this out. Because, one, we enjoy doing it ourselves. And, two, it's making content for people out there that enjoy it. And it's good for everyone.
I like to think that since we shifted away from making a Twitch stream like our main priority, like I feel like we've actually been able to create like a better show as a result of that at certain points, because there's a lot less to worry about if you're doing if you're doing a pre-recorded. You know, in the live show you have to make sure, is the producer doing it right, and is there are the stream viewers doing okay? Like, is the bit rate fine? Are we gonna crap out at any one point? Are the VPNs off? All this shit, and it's like even then in the post production you've got to also make sure that you do everything correctly in that respect. If you watch the last episode, by the way, the audio is stupid out of sync on the video version. I didn't realize that till we uploaded it because I thought I had the issue pinned down, but it's just because of some fucking video shit that I'm not particularly competent at. I'm an audio guy, not a video guy, so I fucked that up. Sorry if you're a video watcher, although I don't know there's many of you out there at the moment. I do I do think we've kind of left you guys in the dust for the past couple of months, obviously being in isolation and very, very busy and shit, Bacon, but we still got loads of stuff to talk about. In particular this week there is obviously the standard set of news, rumors, all the stuff falling out, but no results for you this week. Instead, we're going to revisit a topic that we did around this time last year. In episode 24, we did our State of the Scene address, where we talked about all the major hot button talking topics of the last year, and we'll do the exact same thing, revisiting some of those topics and seeing how far we've come in a year's space, Bacon, all that coming up for you all on the 73rd episode of RLAfterShock. Before we get, though, let's start with the news, and we'll start with some roster rumors. Oh, not roster moves in particular, actually, not rumors, because the rumors are being confirmed at this point. And I do love the fact that most of this shit has now come out of the official sort of announcements, and we've got fucking and we've got people fucking now officially like looking at guys like Shift and be like, oh hey, they're actually legit. Well, there you go. Here's the first one.
Record now. It's good.
Yeah, they have a track record, so now we can trust them, as we've been saying for fucking weeks. Singularity announced the benching of Godsmilla. This comes off the back of a lot of different sort of tryouts and things going on. That we've been talking about in respect to the the Singularity lineup. We said that if there's one person that needs to go, it would be Godsmilla. Well, this is it. It's officially happening. I still don't believe that this is the right move, though. Again, I'm like we said last week with the whole Metsanarus thing coming in. I still think that they should have stuck with Godsmilla for a little bit longer.
Oh, definitely. Like we were saying it before. Like it's a case of Godsmilla. If you were to remove anyone from that team, it would be him. But don't do it, because as Team Singularity, you do not want to be one of the lads to make one of the first moves. You want to be a second mover or whatever to try and pick up, say, a player that's been moved off another team, because you're naturally in the mid-table. You want to try and scrape together a team that's even stronger. Whereas, like we said, this feels with their move that they're probably going a little bit sideways, and we're a little worried about that. But I think the funniest thing was just how this tweet was worded, Jay. It was rookie hour, wasn't it, for Singularity?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, the official announcement from Singularity was very bare bones because it was just we would like to announce the adventure of Godsmilla, and then they linked off to this article which they have on their website, which doesn't even like make an official announcement. It just has a couple of statements from people. It's like, oh, Godsmilla says, obviously it was heartbreaking for me to hear that Noah and Ollie wanted to try out a different third, but I respect that decision. Personally, I've been trying out with various players in the hopes of building a strong pickup team to play in the spring series with. Jake has been talking about how they will be trying out Magnus in the spring series. But in general, it was just sort of a bit of a weird one because I was like, okay, well, okay, this is a bit, just the announcement in terms of it, like the way it was constructed was just a bit sort of, lacking in fanfare, I think, more than anything else. Because you got to remember, this guy's part of the reason, like it or not, that you're even in the championship series to begin with. From my liking, the idea that you would just drop him like that, and it's like, fuck's going on? It just doesn't feel like it was very well thought out on the part of Singularity,
And one thing we will say, of course, is naturally due to the statement of him being benched rather than just he's left the team, for example. So he's still contracted to Singularity, from our understanding, Jay. And this could either be contractually, it's not to the end and they're not wanting to break that. They're looking hopefully to sell him on to another team. Who knows going forward there? Or probably the best case result is they're keeping their options open. If things don't work with Magnus in the spring series, they can just be they're like, sorry, gods, we'll bring you back and continue building up, because there's a lot of time, of course, going on at the moment in the off season. So if Godsmilla comes back, I wouldn't be so surprised if Magnus doesn't work out in the spring series,
Yeah, again, we talked about that. We've talked about this last week as well, and previous weeks, how it could fuck up with the chemistry and mentality within the team if they brought Godsmilla back, knowing that they were like, oh, we're going to replace you. Oh no, we want you back. Please come back to us. We need a third. And it's like that can fuck with mentality big time. If you ever want to know about how how that could work. I mean, we got a question in the mailbag about this a little bit later, but just think about how it worked with Flakes, as he wanted to try out new thirds, and they tried to kick him, and then they didn't, and they sort of completely fucked up back when complexity was still a thing. So, again, I feel like that in the short term, it would be an interesting little prospect to see how far they go. But again, I'm not sure this is the right time to make that move. So I think all eyes will be on Singularity when they try out with Magnus in the spring series, but we'll be retreading ground with a lot of the talking points in particular to this story, because it is just sort of like regurgitating everything. This is now just the official sort of thing. So let's just move on and talk about another little story that we saw from the European region. Caught on Rizzo's stream was a little clip of Rizzo's friend list as he's looking for people to play with. He scrolled past a lot. Remkoe and Greazy all playing in the same private match together. Now, this is like cropped up rumors left, right, and center about whether or not this is actually going to be a thing. Are they going to team again and bring out back the old We Dem Girls side? Was it We Dem Girls that were called under back then, or I can't remember?
No, a lot was never on the We Dem Girls, but definitely Greazy and Remkoe were. That was Northern Gaming with the both of them.
Yes. Okay. So, bottom line is that everyone's thinking that this is going to be a new team. And outside of this one little clip, I have no reason to see why these guys are going to team together. I mean, obviously, anything's possible with the way that with the way that things work in the grand scale of in Rocket League. Anyone can try it with anybody. Anybody could decide, hey, let's go ahead and do XYZ thing and give it a shout. But yeah, this how do we feel about this team if it is actually a thing? Because there's also the possibility that they're just teaming together, playing casually, or otherwise just managing to see each other in matchmaking and some happening to be in the same lobby. There's a lot of different options available with this.
For one, it was a private match, but yeah, these are just three mates. It could just be six mans if they're trying to do that sort of thing. Who knows realistically? If they make a team together, personally, I don't see this going incredibly well. They'll be able to make RLRS, but yeah, this ain't a team that's ever going to be world champions again. It's not even a team that I would say could make even RLCS again. So I think the lads, we're just having a bit of fun playing together like you always see pro players do. In this Reddit thread as well, that Jay's linked for us, which was posted up just yesterday on Reddit, a lot Greazy and Remkoe possibly teaming together. There's also the point of because some players might be playing on NA servers in six mans, does that mean they're going to move over to NA? No, they're just having a bit of fun in private matches. That's all I put that down to.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to take away from this. If they do, let's just assume that they are going to be teaming for the next, championship series run or rival series play-ins. Do we see them doing anything here in this one, Bacon? Like, realistically?
Realistically, no, and I'd expect them to sign up under the name of something like Window Washers or whatever, because these lads, no, you don't. The idea from Greazy last season was good to pick up 2 new talents, but ultimately I'd put the problem on him, like I said before, to not adjust and be the true captain of the team, fill in where you needed. And I feel like this is just comfortability amongst these threes and being comfortable, being complacent when you're not even making it into the RLRS, you're just trying to get on and you're not secure there. That's not the right way to go. You've got to try and push yourself outside of your comfort zone and try and, beat the new talents that are coming through. And we've seen some of these kids that aren't even in RLRSJ. They are scary good. They just need a bit more mentality to the game, a bit more rotation and, strengthen that dynamic, which these 3 guys could give them. But they're just not looking for that, it seems.
I honestly love how you've just placed this as placed them under the title of window washers, just because the idea of going seeing legends of this fucking game going to wash windows just seems so fucking funny to me. I don't know why. But yeah, no, I mean, there's not much to talk about in this story. It was something that somebody wanted us to address, so we'll just go ahead and address it. We still need to see a lot more come out from this, whether or not it actually ends up happening. But obviously, best of luck to all the players. I don't think Remkoe's coming back to competitive though, based off of what we've heard from him so far. So let it be. Let's see what happens in that respect. We said that
with Pashy and,
Yeah, but Pashy
they can't help themselves.
But Pashy wasn't in the same Pashy wasn't in the same position as Remkoe is, because Remkoe was expressed actual sort of upset and just general sort of life issues with playing the game. So, I'm not sure it's the same sort of thing, but that's a topic for another day. Let's move on and talk about Bluey, because the rumors surrounding the Triple Trouble side obviously have seen Rix Ronde depart from the roster recently. And obviously the third man is potentially being picked up and moved into into another slot. And the prospects right now for this team are looking relatively positive. Well, that was until yesterday, as of us recording this, when Scrub went on stream and was watching the Rogue vs. NRG series for the Spring Series. And he made a mention about how Bluey might just ditch Tadpole to team with Scrub Killer in the Spring Series. Now, this is right. I'm not. At the first point, I was thinking that Scrub was just chatting shit. Right, I was thinking he was just chatting shit just for the sake of stirring the shit pot at first, because that's just kind of what he does. But then I thought about it and I was like, actually, that might just happen.
That's the problem. There's some bit of believableness to this, and that's worrying for us, isn't it?
I didn't want to admit it, but as I thought about it more and more in my head, I was just like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. Is there a way? No, they can't. It might just happen. Yeah, exactly. I just had that conversation in my head. I was like, "There's no fucking way," but there is a fucking way. Because, to me, it feels like. And here's the thing, right? With the attitudes that certain players have shown, especially with Bluey and Scrub, I feel like it would be a match made in hell. Let's be real. They
deserve each other.
Exactly. It would not surprise me if they just said, "Oh, fuck our ex-teammates. Let's just go team you together for the sake of Spring Series." I mean, that brings in the question of whether or not the third will be implemented in, and what that would mean for Triple Trouble as well, because got to remember, Bluey still has a rival series. Scrub doesn't, and I know the idea that the idea of Scrub joining Triple Trouble has floated around in the heads of several people. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. I don't know what the situation is with this team and what the situation is with this rumor and this sort of clip, because it's very sort of weird to hear about it at the moment. I don't really know what the plan is for these guys, because Scrub has literally just said, "Oh, hey, Bluey might ditch Tadpole to come play with me instead," which I think is counterintuitive more than anything else. I feel like that would just be a little bit shitty to Tadpole and shit, which it's business at
Also,
the end of the day.
can we
go
talk about like the new reformed Bluey going down to the RLAfterShock, having to pick himself back up and change himself? This would be completely against that sort of image that he's trying to put down, you know?
Absolutely. That's the other that's the reason why I think it's a match made in hell, because it's just like, bro, you know, you say you keep working on yourself, and why are you not sticking with your teammate? You know, like, considering that Tadpole has already taken it very, very badly with Ronicky leaving Triple Trouble back in the day, and you know how that whole thing went down, you're sort of like looking at this shit just like, yo, like, if you want to be the good guy, this is not the right way to go about it, man.
Tadpole
Like,
just
you know,
not catch a break as well. Like, this is one of the most unlucky.
Well, that's the other thing as well, because on Twitter they keep talking to each other, just sort of like, oh, we are the fucking you know, we are the guys that were hard done by in Championship Series, and it's like, you're really going to turn your back on that, Bluey? Come on, dude. But anyway, like, you know, moving on from that, I want to talk about the prospects of Bluey and Scrub together. I mean, just as a duo, and without accounting the idea of a third player in, like, does this team theoretically work? You know?
I would say yes.
You think
like,
so?
Those two together, I actually think if Scrub was to join Triple Trouble, that would make a very strong team. You know, so I don't know who the third is, because this could realistically, like, no Scrub killer, this could be him just stirring the pot, and then it gets announced that, yeah, Scrub is the new third man on Triple Trouble, you know, because that is the sort of character he is. So I could actually see that being a very good because Scrub, as we've seen it in the past, is basically a man that's all over the pitch. He is a very strong rotator all around. You know, he can get an attack. He'll mainly linger about the midfield, but he can then also hold defense, of course. Like, what was it? Not last season, but the season before, he was the best defender, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so Scrub's quite good on that. You throw in Bluey, who's more attack heavy. They're not going to overlap a lot. You could argue maybe he goes north that, but I don't see that problem with this team. And then you hold a third that's more sound-minded, looking to fill the gaps like Tadpole, and that'd be a good team. But the question there is, Jay, like, if they do go together, like, if, let's say, Bluey ditches Tadpole and it's Scrub and Bluey, who the heck would be the third? Because I can't think of a single third person at the moment to this team, you know, like that you'd think would go.
Well, that's the key thing, right? Because like the best thing I can think of probably is Godsmilla at this stage. You know, like that's probably and I realize that's not saying much in grand scale of who we've got on the team. You know, because Scrub and Bluey, they are, you know, world championship material. You know, one's already won a world championship, came close to winning a second one last season. You know, like we've got players in this team who probably are world championship material. I don't think Godsmilla fits within that sort of context. Not within this particular team. You know, I feel like that Bluey and Scrub will get the attitude that he's dead weight, which, you know, I don't know how true that would actually be. I don't think that he would fit in well with the team. But other than that, yeah, like there's fucking no one. You know, there's nobody that you can sort of pick up for this third man for this team, like other than potentially Tadpole, for example. You know, like he would be a great captain, I feel like, to these two, and figure out a way to use them in a way that gives them the edge above other teams. And honestly, like, you know, I think that that's the best way to go about this, which is why this whole fucking Bluey to ditch Tadpole thing is a bit fucking weird. Like, I just don't understand it, man.
Too calculated for me. Like I said, knowing Scrub's personality, this is him just trying to, you know, sprinkle a little bit of drama amongst the community and all of that, to which when it gets announced he's on Triple Trouble, it's like, oh my god, what? Was not expecting that. And you're just there going, yeah, whatever, because Scrub's been like that all along. But if it's not, then I have no idea, because you look at these two players and they traditionally go with more known already RLCS players, don't they? So that's why they're going, we wouldn't know who they would go with. Maybe Extra could be a shout, but I mean, he's trying out elsewhere and it's not really sure what he's doing at the moment. And again, with a lot of RLCS players, if they're going to join this team right now, then they're going to have to requalify through and make this new team. They're going to have to requalify through the RLRS and then try and make it into the RLCS. Like,
yeah,
that's a long graft.
And for Bluey especially, you know, like he better be hoping that it's going to be a long-term project if he wants to go ahead with that. Like in theory, he could probably catch up in the same level of time as if he stuck with Tadpole and Triple Trouble and making it into the championship series next season. Sorry, no, not in the next season, but the season afterwards. So season 11, you know, like that is the option. That is the main thing that he's probably sticking to. Either that, or he could team with Scrub and potentially just, you know, smash through the rival series. But I'm thinking about Scrub. It's like, does he want to play in rival series? You know, like for his long-term sort of career benefit. I don't really know. Like, there's still the rumors that he might end up playing on the Singularity side, which you know, it could be a good pickup for him. You know, there's a lot of options still available for Scrub at this moment. So the idea that Bluey would just outright ditch his team to go team with this guy, it seems like it would be a one tournament affair at best if it does end up happening. You know.
I feel like the way you talk about there, it's more like, you know, Bluey's cheating on Tadpole here with Scrub Killer. Like he's going and doing the dirty. I don't mean to
make it sound like that. But that was what this whole fucking story was pinned as. It does
feel like that because, like you said, Scrub is sort of like waiting longer for the stones to start falling. Like you were saying, if Magnus doesn't work out on Singularity, then he would be a good pickup for Singularity to try and go for the strongest pickup there. And it is sort of there, like Scrub's just waiting, you know, he's got his nose to the ground, just waiting for the next truffle to come along, and he'll munch that on up if he gets a spot, and he'll take a call to any RLCS team at the moment because you want to. You don't want to go down into rival series. We've seen what it's like.
It's usually ending up in pro teams disbanding for shits and gigs, you know, but anyway. Again, it's very similar to the Remkoe and Greazy thing. There's still a lot that needs to come out before I say, oh, hey, this is going to be a team. So let's just see how it works with Scrub Killer and Bluey. We'll keep you updated here as the podcast rolls on. And certainly we'll be doing any team announcements on RLAfterShock.com as well. So keep your eyes on that website. But let's move on to a rumor now. A couple of one rumor in particular. Obviously, we're talking about the idea of Triple Trouble. To move on, there's a nice little segue into this one because Shift have reported that Metsanarus is expected to be the third for Triple Trouble in the spring series. So this throws a completely new spanner into the work for the whole Bluey thing, because if he leaves, then they're going to need to find another new third to be on the Triple Trouble side.
And that would.
But let's assume. Yeah, exactly. You know, that would kill the team. So let's assume for a minute that Bluey is not going to join Scrub Killer and Metsanarus will play with Bluey and Tadpole for the spring series. What do we make of this team?
I think I quite like this team. I think it would be a borderline RLCS, RLRS side. Like you'd be looking at bottom 4 RLCS, top 3 RLRS next current season, or like with the current standings anyway, they'd be fitting into that category. Because Bluey, again, very heavy on the attack. Metsa has played very odd throughout the seasons. Like some seasons he'll just play completely defenses, others he'll get up more into the attack. So it just comes down to he'll fit the team as needed. And here I see Tadpole staying back a little bit more, and probably doing a little bit of a rotation personally with Metsa, and the whole focus would be on Bluey. This is why I think the whole Bluey leaving Triple Trouble for Scrub is very bewildering, because this Triple Trouble feels as if it is purposely made around Bluey to support him in his strongest area, and that, if you're a player, is where you want to be, you know, because he's going to be the standout star player of this Triple Trouble team if this does come through with Metsa joining them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the possibilities there. For me, though, Metsanarus was very underwhelming in his season, and very, very underwhelming in the promotion playoffs for the last season of the championship series. So for me, I was looking at this like, I'm still a little bit. Like, the jury's still out for me on this one. I don't know whether or not this is going to be a good move until it actually gets into the server. Because Metsanarus, for all we know, like, you know, he could be a player that gets onto a new team and gets refreshed. You know, obviously that's kind of what happened after Complexity. You know, after the Complexity side ditched him, and he moved on to Weedem Envy, and then you know the Weedem girls side later on. You know, he had like a performance that sort of really rivals rivals some players and really rivals some of his previous performances in terms of like, you know, what he did with Complexity and, all sorts of other like teams before that. So I don't know until we see it in action for this one. And all I have to do is all I have to go off is the recent history. And I'm not going to lie, I just wasn't impressed with what Metsa was doing in the last season of Championship, you know?
So the problem is Metsa is a support player, Jay. And last season on the, TSM side, he was supporting an old man in Zimmer frame and I don't know, a wet sock it felt like, you know, that was the TSM case. So how is he meant to support what he can't support, what he's not doing anything? You know, the whole meme of just the bloke with a stick poking it going, go on, do something. That's what we all felt with TSM, and we thought we saw that in the very first season. Like that first week, TSM actually came out the gate swinging, and we were like, what the shit is going on? Like, especially me. And then week 2 they went back to disappoint themselves, and we were like, oh no, it could have been so good. You showed you could play well, and then you just threw that all out the window. So I reckon this is easily going to be, especially with this side, the rebirth of Metsa, purely because, like I said, he's a support player and his job is to support Bluey in attack, support tadpole in defense, and you've got perfect grounds for him to just continuously look for teammates, with tadpole, of course, guiding over those comms from what we've seen in the past, and then he should just be able to do an absolute cracking job. Like, this is why I think, like, after last season, we didn't rank Triple Trouble like incredibly high. We thought they'd be a top 3 team, but we were always there going maybe on the lower end of that top 3. But this one, I could definitely feel like if that team came through, you'd be looking at a top 2 finish.
Well, again, for me, the jury's still out on that one, so I'll keep my eyes on how well they'll do in the spring series, assuming this is going to go through. It's still a rumor at this stage, you know. We're still got to see how well how well Triple Trouble will take the whole thing with Bluey, obviously. So, and for rival series especially, we don't even know if Metsanarus will be on the team for that. You know, there's still a lot of time between now and that particular point. So, yeah, let's keep our eyes on this story. Again, I want to bring as many updates as possible. I'll do my own digging and see what I can find out. To move on to the end of the news, though, Endpoint have announced a roster move at the Championship Series level, and this kind of came out of nowhere. We did not hear anything about this. I believe that there were talks in the rumors of relating Wave possibly wanting to go ahead and play with new people, but Nachitow, though, I was not expecting him to get benched. Yeah, he got benched. And again, very similar to the Godsmilla thing. I don't understand why they did it, Bacon.
Yeah, this was a bit of an odd one because for the same reasons as I said with Singularity, Endpoint shouldn't be making a move early. Like, if they're going to make a move, it's purely because of players that have just been made free agents and are available. So for them to go now, I don't know. Like, it just feels so uncertain. And the problem is, like, Spring Series is going to be a big showing for the Endpoint side. And I feel like with a roster move, they pretty much locked themselves out of the 4 qualification spots, you know, with all the other teams that are about. So I hope them well, but I am under no, expectations for them to do well. I reckon it's probably going to be, if their best result would probably be like a top 16 finish for those 4 spots. I think it's going to be a pretty tough time considering it is their first competitive competition with their new third man, whoever that is.
That's the other thing as well. The other side of this story is who is going to be that third man, because, you know, with him being obviously
wraps.
Yeah, again, like, the only thing we've heard has not even come true, you know, like that's the reason why we didn't even report on it. So, you know, like I don't know what we're expecting out of this team now. Like, yeah, he's been moved to the bench, and now, you know, who's going to be taking over that main sort of third man position? You know, obviously, I know that Endpoint have Eclipse there as their coach, but I don't think he's really going to be in a position to play. You know, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they do. I don't know. I don't know who they go for. I don't know who they decide to pick up. Like, there's a lot of different prospects around, but I just don't know. You know, I just don't know again, it's one of the stories that catches me so far out the blue that I literally don't have an answer as to, you know, where they'll place with their new third or who the new third will be. Like, it's so new and breaking that I've got nothing to add, you know?
Yeah, that is it. So when that comes out as who the new third is, I'm sure we'll be reporting on that. It's going to be soon. Come on, face it. Like, Spring Series is, blimey, next weekend? I think it's OC this weekend coming, and then it's EU afterwards, correct?
Hold on. Yeah, OC is April 28th to 29th, so that's this weekend. And that's the OC qualifier. That's this week, and then May 2nd, 3rd in the weekend. And then
I'm
Europe.
correct because I know the qualifier date. So yeah, next weekend, 9th and 10th will be EU. So you basically got a week from today, and by next Monday, Tuesday will be, of course, when we see you know, what the final teams are, because they've all got to put their names down on Smash for the qualifiers.
We'll find out very, very soon. That much is certainty on the case. But for Nachitow, obviously, I wish him the best, honestly. I think it was probably one of the better elements of this squad. So let's see where he goes from here. But for now, that's going to be the end of the news for this week. And not a lot that we can break down because it has kind of just been a standard sort of week of news in terms of the roster moves being confirmed and other sort of like things we can talk about. The majority of today's show is definitely going to be in our mailbag and our state of the scene address. Again, the mailbag. If you want to get involved and send us questions and topics to talk about, then you can join the Discord in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast. And click that link, follow it into our community, go send a question in the hashtag mailbag channel, and chances are you'll hear it answered on an episode of RLAfterShock. So, our first question comes in from Velixo. Any change you could have... I'm not sure what we're supposed to be saying there, but any change you could have... Oh, any chance. I understand. Okay. Yes. Any chance you could elaborate on Esportsia? Okay, look, if you're going to send a question to the mailbag, can you please spell check it? Because dyslexia is not happy with me. All right? Like, please, just fucking sort me out here. Anyways, Velixo asking, any chance you could elaborate on Esportsia? I saw Virtuoso mention them being dodgy as well. Can barely find anything about them other than they're endorsed by a bunch of orgs and companies. Never mind anything negative about them. Obviously, this is in combination with the RCD thing we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And obviously, like, you know, as you mentioned, Virtuoso has said some shit about them being dodgy. I was going to do some investigation in the build up to this episode, Bacon, because I was going to take a moment out to have a look into it and sort of like gather some testimonies to sort of ascertain what's going on with them. But I haven't had time because of the road to Rio. So I'm kind of, and then for me, it's a similar sort of thing. Like, I don't know much about Esportsia other than the fact that they are there to sort of like, you know, act as a liaison of sort of, you know, I don't know what they do essentially, but they're sort of like a consultancy agency that's, you know, partner up with like professional football clubs in and around the Spanish and European region.
They're essentially just there. They'll, like, it's the whole business of they'll run an esports department in quotations for you. So you just slap your name onto one of their almost like templates of how to make a team. You know, if anything, they're selling a product of an esports team to all these football clubs, and then they'll just run them off. And the problem is that Esportsia just see this as a business form, which isn't a bad thing at all. Like, you know, you got to make money, and they're providing this to a lot of football teams, which is marketing for them. The only problem is, as a player for them or fans.
Sorry, I just heard a kid screaming out your window. So
I'll close my window and say, it's just everyone's in their back gardens, aren't they, at the moment? You know, true. Kids go and stir crazy. Anyway, so yeah, where it's just a case of the people at the company of Esportsia don't really care about the players. You know, it's all money and numbers. So when it comes down to player contracts, you're noticing it's very bleh. It's all purely for the money and no passion in the esport itself. So that's why they're... And the dodginess is just, you know, a little bit of loopholes and such, like, and trying to just rush this along for their company so it looks good. Hence why stuff like, Trox and the contract not really being legally binding is a bit of a dodgy area, but the company doesn't really care. They're just like throwing it on and they'll care about that later because no one's really checking it up, because esports is still a bit of a wild west, isn't it? You know, so it's just a company making money at a period of time where they can.
So you mentioned that they just run the teams on behalf of the organizations, right? So like you're saying that they are actually the reason that they are behind FC Barcelona, they're behind Getafe, they're behind Govan and such. They're the ones behind all of these teams. So they are the actual like not team owners, but they are the guys that are running them per se.
Yeah, they're the ones that manage them.
That seems a little bit fishy. Just a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure what the legalities behind that are, but
can you remember there was a certain tournament a few, like a year or two back, 2 years back probably at this point, which was trying to get a lot of Spanish football teams together and that. To run a esports league across multiple platforms. You would notice
LLPE.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, notice how many of those clubs would have been under this sort of like branch, and that's where it becomes very questionable and dodgy. If you've got multiple teams that are being managed by the same organization, they might have complete, good intentions, not looking to fix anything. But like we were saying with the whole Sandrock thing, if you're running a tournament or you have multiple teams in the same tournament, like we ask these same questions about Gfinity, Jay? Like it's fair. You have to ask those questions. But if you've got, say, a 10-team tournament and 6 of those teams are run and managed by the same company, you're looking at so many possibilities for dodgy action. And when you're in an environment like esports where stuff like betting and gambling are very prominent, because that's another avenue to make money. I know it's not in Rocket League, even though it is. It's just not officially sanctioned.
If you search hard enough, you will find Rocket League books, and most of them are under like official, reputable sort of like gambling sort of bookies and shit. Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the main concern. I don't believe that we have evidence to say Esportsia are most certainly fixing matches or doing shit that's shady. But again, with the same problem crops up with the Sandrock and TEI thing. It's the fact that there is that possibility there that breaks down the whole thing. It compromises fucking everything in respect to competitive integrity, because the possibility is still there. If we see fucking if we see RCD pick up a team that managed to go far and actually beat FC Barcelona, even in a situation where FC Barcelona would be better than any RCD squad I think they can pick up right now, it's like that's fucking sketch as shit. That just off the basis of that link being there, it's like, well, did they throw the match to give Getafe or RCD a bit more of a leg up? That's a possibility. It's entirely plausible that was a thing, and that's all thanks to this Esportsia link, which is what part of the first thing that I sort of get kicked off when I see all of these big sort of names. And again, several of them have been part of Rocket League in the past. FCB, obviously, we know. Getafe were one of the best Spanish teams to come out of the Renegade Cup at the time. And RCD obviously mentioned that they were trying to finalize a strategic partnership with Esportsia after they dropped Trox and his Merry Men. So there's something weird going on with this. And I want to dig into it a little bit more as the show goes on. But it's like, when it comes to Esportsia, ask questions constantly, and this actually applies to everything. Actually, constantly ask the right questions. Ask all the questions and scrutinize fucking everything, because shit like this has happened before, right? Like again, I've mentioned during the TEI episode where I did my rant. Look up ES Force and look up Refresh Entertainment and look up all the fucking PEA. Look up all these things that Counter-Strike tried to do, and this sounds quite a lot like that, with the exception of ownership and such.
The biggest one you can relate to Rocket League would be back to Mocket, back when they had both an EU and an NA team. And as soon as they made Worlds, Psyonix put their foot down when you can only have one sponsored team, one Mocket team at Worlds. So that's how, I do believe back then it went to Take 3. But that's how that was sort of formed. And this is when it got even more questionable, when Mocket bought out Pale Horse back in OCE as an organization that didn't really do anything, but it was just for that event. Nothing came off that, no wrongdoings, but that is when you sort of like question it, because especially with Rocket League Worlds, what was like what the chances of, say, a Mocket, maybe if they didn't have a team that was making it through the top bracket, say you had Pale Horse, for example, and Mocket up in the upper bracket, and they could just go, the money is going to be incredibly stacked. Again, betting for market to win. So you put a lot of money into Pale Horse and throw the game and make money that way, and you can do that. That is the scariness of the situation. And then, of course, they've got a good enough team that can make it through the lower bracket. Of course, you make that decision, on the day or whatever, depending on circumstances. But that's why you've got to be careful. Of course, we're not, saying anyone did anything in concrete. We're just saying, be careful. It is a thing that happens, and
but again,
you've got to be aware.
The problem is not the fact that these things are happening; it's the possibility of these things happening, because there are other incentives as well. It's not just money and gambling. It's also a case of, well, we want our products to do well. So if we have one team taking on another, one team's doing particularly bad in the league, why don't we just get the better team who don't lose a whole lot by losing this game, just to throw it away, so we can artificially boost our shit.
Yep.
An artificial boost is some shit that's going on really rife in esports as well. I'm working on something in relation to the RLCS, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later on in the show. That's have to do a lot of investigation on, but certainly something that might interest a couple of people. And the fucking the level of connection that Esportsia has is something to, at the very least, be wary of. For me, I'd be personally concerned about it, because shit like this I've seen before and it's never ended well. So, with Esportsia, I mean, in terms of the individual player interactions, I don't know much about it, but from a wider business range, it's we got sort of look into it a bit more, I think. And again, whenever you see anything on Esportsia and anything in general, again, just question the fuck out of it. Just, scrutinize it beyond belief. Anyway,
there's big reasons, say with the players and their contracts. The contracts provide safety, but let's just say Barcelona were to, win Worlds, for example. Over that one season, they'd make more money being uncontracted than they would under a contract. So there's a lot of things that are very awkward in that, and they're very much a business heavy focus rather than the benefit of the team. They're not looking to really grow their team. They're just there purely for the brand, which works in a lot of sense, because the best team for marketing towards Rocket League right now, I would say, is Barcelona. You look at their Instagram interaction, you look at what they're doing across the board, and they are promoting the shit out of their Rocket League team, which is fantastic to see, and you don't get that from even some of the even bigger names in Rocket League team wise, and you can see it's purely because they're doing it as a marketing point, and they know the heaviness of this. Whereas if you look towards, let's just say, I'm trying to think right now of another team. Let's say Dignitas. Yeah, they'll do their stuff with the team during regionals and that, but most of the time it's just more. It feels more like an obligation to them rather than them actually trying to heavily focus. And this can be shown by, what was it, the Fnatic game that Colin Stumpy casted the other day, where they got the Fnatic CS team to play up against the FCB team. And that's just part of why the team could be good. You can see it as it's fantastic for the marketing of Rocket League, but you do have to be careful, because they are looking at it from a business perspective. And if it would help them, money wise, to maybe fuck up the team, they could do that. Like you were saying, throwing games, if it would help their other projects.
There's a lot of digging that needs to be done, though. So I'm going to look into this a little bit more. Again, I had intentions to get some details up before the show, but I've just been busy as fuck. So just keep your eyes on esports here and keep your eyes on everything. Again, thank you very much, Velixo, for your question. Let's move on and talk with Chewie, as he sends us a question for the mailbag. I know this is an NA question, but just go with it. First Killer made a comment about how he just got to survive one more season and make another upgrade, clearly saying he plans on kicking Chronovi. Do you think this will cause another situation like Complexity, where Flakes wanting to kick Greazy seemingly destroy the team? And what effect do you think this could have on First's career as a whole? Now, I think that given the situation with Cloud9, for those of you who who are the only follow this podcast for the EU side of things, there was an intimation that First Killer was going to go to Cloud9. That got blocked because his buyout was fucking stupid, utterly fucking stupid.
I would imagine he's got the highest buyout in the whole of Rocket League, if not for Turbo Pulsar. I'd reckon Turbo's probably up there as well.
I mean,
but
he's probably got the highest buyout of any prospect transfer. Let's put it that way. Okay, I don't think Turbo's going anywhere from NRG. RG. Like, you know, I think they're going to hold on to him like a tight brick. Like, he's probably got some fucking infinite buyout clause just to be like, look, you're going to be paying us forever if you want to be fucking, you know, taking one of the best players in all of Rocket League ever away from us. Like, you know, that's probably the situation. But with First Killer, like, you know, obviously I mentioned this in the Aftershock article, but his buyout clause was like 6 figures. And the prospect for Cloud9 obviously was that, hey, they were going to get a new start with this kid, build the team around him. Obviously that didn't happen because money's tight in these days, especially with Corona. And you know, the transfer got blocked. First Killer's going to be staying on the Rogue side. And obviously the intimation here, as you mentioned, is that he plans on kicking Kronovi. To air it in such a public fashion is probably a bit of a suspicious moment, but it ties back into the Godsmilla thing we were talking about earlier, in the sense that, hey, if you're planning to make roster moves, it is business, but there is also a mentality aspect to bring to the fold. And I think that, you know, with any roster move, you need to think very carefully about whether or not that roster move will be appropriate for them. Has First Killer done this? Given the circumstances, I don't think he has. I think his comments were made in a very emotional sort of state of mind, because he almost got out of Rogue and he almost went to Cloud9 with a prospect with teams and players that I still think have potential to do some damage in the North American scene, you know, and possibly even the world stage, you know?
Yeah, and when you look at this as well, there's also the point of mentality in Rocket League is still there, that the players make the transfer. There's no, like, realistically, and it feels a little bit like this probably happened with Endpoint, of you go to your org and discuss it with them first that you want to make this transfer, instead of like Cloud9. From what we heard, there was even scrims with First Killer before, like, you know, it was going, no, you can't make that transfer. We're not paying the, like you said, 6-figure sum to have this kid in the team, when we were already paying 3 players that made it, you know, the improvements we've seen from Cloud9 this season. You just got to improve again. Like, that's the org looking at that. That's Cloud9 looking at it and going, you just got to work harder, lads, instead of trying to use a cop out. This is our money, not yours. This isn't something you can throw away. And again, that's just player mentality. And this differs in other games purely because, you know, you got larger teams. Generally, you have a captain who has a lot heavier a say over the team, don't you? In, say, something like CS, and they would be more closely talking to that org to make these decisions. But in Rocket League, where, and again, we'll go on to this a little bit later, but the 2/3 mentality, it can, and we've seen this in old seasons, be a case of you can fuck up an entire team just because, one, you think there needs to be a change to the team and you don't want to lose out on your spot.
I mean, the 2/3 mentality thing is bad. We're going to come to that in a follow-up question, so we'll stay away from that for the moment. But you know, I think that obviously, like, it's one of the elements that people don't really think about whenever they're trying to make transfers, is the fact that, hey, this could actually, you know, wreck the mentality of the team, because if First looking to make fucking moves, you know, and he's looking to let's say, for example, he's looking to make a roster change, and he's looking to try and kick someone like Kronovi. Well, you know, how does Tiro feel about that? You know, like, how does he think with these 2 players? You know, obviously Kronovi is, you know, such a fucking legend in the game. You know, like, he's been to, I think, every single world championship, or not every world championship, excuse me. Every single, you know, he's been part of every single edition of RLCS ever since season 1. Yeah. So, you know, like, he's one of North America's sort of greatest. You know, I'd say it probably is. I don't think the turbo of North America is the right sort of word to say. But you kind of understand my meaning. You know, he's sort of like one of the most decorated players in the fucking region. It's like
close to the Cooks with how long he's been around.
That's a better comparison. Cooks here. He's the Cooks here of North America. And for Chiro especially, you know, like, there could be like a level of mutiny in that respect. Because if he's like, actually, no, fuck you First, I want to play with Crow. Then it's like, well, now we've got a situation of a power dynamic going on. And it's like, well, if he agrees with First and then they get rid of Kronovi and they can't find an appropriate third, then we've got a situation where, well, as you say, they've taken out one of the most experienced members of the roster and now they're fucked. You know, like, when you make a roster move in Rocket League especially, like, it is so affecting, is that the right word? It messes with the with the entire dynamic of the team, and we've seen that before. You know, again, as Chewie mentioned, you know, with complexity, like, Flakes obviously wanting to kick Greazy had a massive mental impact on the team, and they couldn't win a single game in the season. Prior to that, the original complexity roster, back when they kicked Metsanarus and brought Greazy back in, fucked them up for the following season or 2. You know, like, they had a really, really bad time together, and, you know, this is all off the back of some really good performances. Obviously, they came 3rd third place at the World Championship prior to the Metsanarus move, and Flakes rejuvenated Complexity to the point where we thought they're going to be world champions next season, and obviously that didn't happen. So we're in some really weird situations when it comes to roster moves, and when shit spills out into the public eye especially, it just makes it worse.
It really doesn't. This is why, like, when it came down to stuff like the Endpoint transfers going on right now, like, of course, we base a lot of our show on these rumors and transfers and all of that, but we really, like, recognize the professionality with Endpoint here. And if anything, like, applaud them, don't we, Jay? Because it actually hurts the scene more by being this open and, dramatic about it all than just keeping things under wrap. And then when it needs to come out, it comes out through the right channels.
I mean, well, we have differing opinions in that respect, so I'll leave you to that be. It's a very complicated subject to talk about. It could well cause a situation with Complexity, or they could find a new third who really works pretty well. For now, though, they've got to stick with it, and they've got to make it happen. And for the next season, that's going to be tough, considering that First has already made sort of has made intimations that he wants to make a change to the team going forward. So.
Their recent results in the spring series weren't too bad. So if they can build up, then hopefully he can change his mind. But First Killer's not been, I would say, hurt by the reality of Rocket League. Just that, it was his first season. He did okay. But going forward, you have to be hit down before it really starts to, make you realize how fickle and how fragile your career in esports can be.
Indeed, especially in Rocket League, and we've got more to talk about that later on in the show, so definitely stick around for that. Thank you very much, Chewie, for your question. We'll go to Juicy next. Not so much a question, but more a topic. He says, £1 million or €1 million bet on the discussion moving to how fucking stupid the current two-thirds system is. Is it stupid?
Who gets that €1 million? That's the question right here, Jay. Come on.
I want to fucking get it. Fuck it. Let's if that's a legitimate bet, right? Let's start making RLAfterShock the way to push people into talking about the two-thirds system, because I want €1 million. I'll fucking take €1 million right here. That'd be great in these current times. But obviously, let's talk about the two-thirds system, obviously, because Juicy seems to think that it's stupid. And we respect all opinions at RLAfterShock, but also it's my opinion that opinion is pretty stupid.
I love that response. The council, I respect the council's decision right now, but the council's decision is stupid.
The council's made a stupid fucking decision, so I'm electing to ignore it. Yeah. No, I actually like the two-thirds system.
What's the alternative? This is the point. What's the alternative to this, Jay? That the orc holds onto the spot? Oh boy.
Yeah, no, that can lead to some severe fuckery. At that point, we might as well just move to a franchise system. And fuck that noise. Absolutely not. I do not believe that's a good idea. The thing with two-thirds is that I get it, because it's very restrictive compared to something like Counter-Strike, where you've got 3/5. Because at that point you can make a couple roster moves here and there. You have a few more options and a little bit more breathing room and lax when it comes to the rosters as a whole. But it's not right to say 1/3, because that would just completely wreck any team, any level of core that a team would have with within the context of a tournament. And I don't think that organizations should own the sport. I think they should go to the players, because that's ripe for corruption, in my opinion. So what is the alternative? I like the two-thirds system because it keeps the spot and power with the players, even if sometimes it's probably not justified.
Yeah, the problem is not the two-thirds system, it's the players. Players are dumb, Jay. We know this. We talked about it many a time before.
Was that quote one in Twitch chat?
In the
RLAfterShock, in the RLAfterShock Twitch, yeah.
But it is that point of, like we said, in the early days of Rocket League, transfer moves were more so made out of fear that you were going to be the one that gets dropped. So it's like, which are the two better friends on each roster, and then stick together. These days, it's more feeling like, oh, you might have not had a good performance this season, because when we look at, say, Cloud9 still trying to get rid of Torment, for example, I think pound for pound, Torment's the best player on that fucking team. Yeah, he's the one getting dropped. Like, that is bewildering for me. Maybe Gimmick is actually the better one. Like, realistically, if I was to change one of those players, it'd easily be Squishy. But the point is that Squishy and Gimmick are looking at each other going, no, we think we're the better duo to stick on. We want this new third man. And they've made that decision. They've got it in head. That's just what happens, really. The difference is, like, the better option is maybe to stick as a trio. Let's look towards G2 this season, you know. Instead of making that easy get out and getting a new third player on in, they went back to the drawing board. They got together in a playhouse for, I think it was a month or two, and really just hashed it out, put tons of work on in to rejuvenize the team. And I mean, now they're the best team in America, hands down, you know, like that's what you do. I think with Rocket League, the problem is the players and this very young mentality to always try and find a quick get out instead of knowing, like, with a real sport, it is a long graft. It is long, hard work, and you've just got to, you know, put the effort in, put the work in, you'll get the results. You can't just instantly make one change and suddenly you're magical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the main thing, right? Like with any sort of sport, it takes or any competitive field, it takes a long time to get to where you want to be. Like no one becomes a world champion overnight. You know, no one becomes the greatest in a single tournament. No one ever does that. You know, and it's the same with any sort of real valuable career path. Like, you know, we've been grinding casting for a very long time. Me personally, I've been doing this for, you know, pushing 5.5 years. You know, like it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where now I'm working with some of the biggest tournament organizers in the fucking world. So, you know, like it takes time for any team to go to that point. And with Rocket League, it can be very easy because obviously, like, you know, teams can form and dissipate at a moment's notice. But it's not always the right call. And Psyonix realized this as well, which is why they implemented that 2/3 system in the first place. Remember, the main reason when they went to, you know, having a promotion relegation system in championship and rival series, the main reason why they implemented the 2/3 rule was to make sure that teams didn't fucking just disband in the same sort of way when they reached the rival series level. I mean, that's not worked. I'll tell you that right now. But there's another reason for that later on, which we'll be talking about on the show. But in seriousness, like there's no real good alternative to the 2/3 system. And I mean, if you do, then Juicy, absolutely feel free to slide into the mailbag and give us another shout, and we'll debate that on the show next time. You know, obviously you can get involved in a conversation in the Discord as well. But for me, like I like 2/3, and in that respect, I wouldn't want to change it for anything. But again, thank you very much for your topic suggestion in the mailbag. Our final mailbag question comes in from Trox, and I'm so happy he asked this, Bacon. I'm so fucking happy he asked this because I was looking for an excuse to talk about this on a European podcast, and it is as follows. What are your guys' take on Psyonix once again trying to adhere to the American sports viewer with that kind of interesting screening on ESPN2? Now, if you were watching North American Spring Series, especially last night on Sunday the 26th, where they had what's his name? I keep forgetting what his name is. Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan. So they announced on the Rocket League Twitter that they would be bringing him in on the ESPN broadcast to basically be part of the commentary team for Rocket League. Now, I had a couple feelings about this. I was like, number one, this feels like it's going to be a disaster. Prior, of course, this is my thoughts prior to the whole thing. So I was like, they are bringing on somebody who has never had any Rocket League broadcasting experience to come and do the biggest tournament that we've got right now in the Rocket League space. And I was like, that seems like a very backwards hiring decision. But I can also see him potentially being like a sort of like host. Maybe they might bring him on as sort of like, you know, just a sort of like, you know, have not like, you know, sort of like it's a gimmick question, you know, not as a gimmick per se, but it's like, no, here's the thing, right? I think you could fit someone like Landon. I think you could fit someone like Landon Donovan into a position where it's like, oh, he's like maybe the show host or the desk host, and he's the guy asking the questions. Like, okay, so why do they do this? Why do they do that? You know, maybe he could build some storylines in that respect because, you know, being a host does not require you to have knowledge. And I think that could have been a great way to present him. And I was like, okay, well, do you know what? That would be a great idea. Let's keep an open mind about this without criticizing it early. And what do? They did the stupidest fucking thing in the world. And they just put him as like the secondary color caster. And the product was fucking atrocious. Now, not just from a gameplay and analysis subject, like not only do they have absolutely no fucking concept, like they also had no chemistry between Leafx, Jamespot, and Landon. Like, there was fucking none of it right there. Like, he kept asking questions and he kept giving a lot of dead air. Like, he very clearly didn't understand what esports broadcasting is in comparison to football broadcasting. And that completely ruined the spring series for the average viewer. Now, I understand people are going to be like, look, it was not for us. It was for the TV viewer. Fuck that logic, okay? I'm just going to say that right now. We don't have to compromise for the sake of getting a TV spot. It's not worth it to compromise for getting a TV spot.
It's more the point of, like you said before, with this broadcast style, if it's for the TV viewer, good, you've had the TV viewer for 30 seconds, then they've switched off because they're so fucking bored. Like, that's the problem right there.
That's the key thing, right? What makes esports exciting? In a lot of cases, it's actually the casters, because the casters are fucking godlike, okay? Like, I think probably, I would say esports casters, like, at the top end of their field, are better than sports broadcasters in general. Like, and that's why the fucking, like, the way the Psyonix do things baffles me, because they're trying to be like sports broadcasters when we should be doing our own fucking thing. And this is just more to the point of that. Like, I appreciate that Landon Donovan was supposed to be, like, a big name that attract people in terms of name value. Because he does work for ESPN. So I wouldn't be surprised if ESPN said this has to be in place if you want to be on ESPN too. But why do we have to make that compromise over and fucking over again? E-League proved that we can do a product that fits both and it worked. Okay, right? Like, understand that E-League Cup for Rocket League got the highest viewership among sort of like the highest viewer numbers during the year that it ran for both of the years that E-League ran the E-League Cup. And should be noted, by the way, these are the same years that E-League got CSGO majors, okay? That's fucking insane when you think about, how good that product was, how good the tournaments were. No one has a bad thing to say about E-League, but everyone's got a bad thing to say about Spring Series because of the way that we had to compromise for this shit. Like, we don't have to do this. We absolutely do not have to do any of this shit. Like, just do the fucking product that we've always done, put it on TV, and go for it. And if ESPN are like, no, you got to do our thing, well, fuck you. We got Twitch. We got Twitch to do it on. We got YouTube to do it on. We got loads of fucking platforms. We don't have to be on TV. Like, understand that we're going through a scenario right now where online broadcasting is becoming more prominent than TV broadcasting. I know that seems backwards, but give it a decade. Give it a decade and we will be in a much different position. Like Twitch and YouTube and Netflix and stuff, they will be the go-to platforms for entertainment. And then linear TV will just be on the way out. That's just the truth of the matter. Like, the numbers speak for themselves. Twitch's viewership and sign-up rate and their numbers are on the up. TV is on the down. And yes, TV still has the prominence because it's been there for fucking 80 years, but that's going to change us someday. And that day is coming soon.
So, on a more positive note, Jay, the biggest thing that annoyed me about this is that you could have easily done this a million times better as well with the format that they wanted. So straight up, let's say that they wanted to keep the host because that's what people got acclimatized to, Leaf, and Donovan in there. So one, Leaf, I cannot remember the last time he actually ever casted. That had been back probably, season 5, season 6 now? Off the top of my head, I do believe season 6. He's brought on to be hosting season 7, I'm correct. So way back. So realistically in this as well, he wasn't that much of a color caster. He was more asking questions to either Donovan or he was just picking up on points, explaining a little bit. So it was a bit of a weird mixture role. And Donovan was just there to ask questions of like, is this like normal? What happens in all of this? And the second was like trying to make a more comparison to football or for the American soccer, And James was in a weird sort of case of he was doing play-by-play, but then having to really dumb it down whilst making it entertaining and just didn't know what to do. I saw a post out on Reddit that said James is doing a fantastic job given the current circumstances. James was doing a job given the circumstances, was not doing a good job of it. Like we know, because we've done broadcasts like these to investors and that, haven't we, in exhibitions and all of that. So we know, comparing to that, it's not the same thing. What they should have done, and there are two very easy choices of this, was either go for Wavepunk, who's had to do a very similar job, but for Twitch rivals, across many different games for a more casual audience, or you go for the one lad who has done solo casting and built an entire career off of solo casting, Johnny Boy. Two much easier casters there that are more used to a simplified role, or that solo casting role. And Johnny Boy's casting, I think, would have handed perfectly towards this. So it just makes me then go to whether it was DreamHack who are doing the production or Psyonix. I don't know who, because we don't know who's really running the show around the broadcast.
I think it was DreamHack, actually. Based on the fact they're using DreamHack accounts, I think actually they gave it to they gave Spring Series to DreamHack, which I think is a really fucking positive sign. Given the fact that DreamHack ran the best tournaments of the year last year, hands down, by the way. Like this kicks the shit out of last season's, the last season World Championship, what DreamHack did. But like I just, even then, the other alternative as well is to create, it's something that D-Man suggested. For those of you who don't know, D-Man, former League of Legends caster, former Counter-Strike caster, currently looking to possibly move into Valorant as well. He made a mention about ESPN picking up a bunch of esports, and he said it's pretty obvious now that we need to see this shit, go to an alternative broadcast for the ESPN audience, which I think actually, Bacon, that could be a great way to do things. Like we've seen that done a couple different times in other sports broadcasts. Personally, I would like the E-League approach of just making a product that fucking works for everybody, because it can be done and it's provably been done. But like with the fucking with the idea of ESPN doing their own broadcast, like at that point you've got a compromise that works for everybody. Landon can now be a part of the ESPN broadcast. Now you've got your shit, you've got your guys there. You can bring in some other commentators, you can bring in some entertainment personalities, you can bring in Sunless Khan and shit and have him sit in the studio and give some basic explanations about what's going on there. You can bring in other community commentators as well and have them do this fucking the ESPN broadcast, and they could also be like a bit more of like they could do like a bit more explanation in place of what the Spring Series guys will be doing for the main broadcast and shit. But obviously that's not going to happen because very clearly, I think, here's the thing, I think it's partially down to a little bit of ESPN wanting to have their own product in there and having their own stamp on things. And I think that all in all, because of that, they ruin the esports product. And again, I will say this right now, we've done this before. Like there's 2.5 decades of esports history that we can pull from, and there was a product that I know of that you might have heard of it, Bacon, called the CGS. Do you remember this? Yep. It was a fucking disaster because of shit like this. Because they desperately did everything to change the video gaming landscape to fit the TV audience, and it was dead within 2 years. It was pinned to be the next big thing. It was dead within 2 years, and partially that was because it was like around 2008 before we saw the global like market crash and shit. But even so, with the product that we had, the mainstream esports audience was alienated. The mainstream audience in general had no fucking interest. So like, you ruin the whole thing, and that set esports back probably like years. And let's not do that again here with Rocket League. Like we're on the ropes as it stands already. Like let's just fucking not, please. On another note, by the way, on a more personal note, and I realize that obviously I'm going to start bigging up my own fucking head. How many kicks to the balls do I have to take when I see shit like this on broadcast? Like, look, let's not lie here. The casting was fucking terrible. It was fucking atrocious. And again, I don't blame Leaf or James for that. Like they were put in a very bad situation, all things considered. And, I think that they were probably more better hires, but they were the ones that were given the job. They made the best of what they could do. But as a caster myself, to see guys like Landon being picked up and him fucking getting the big dick energy from the main broadcast, like, man, I've been doing this for 3 years. I've been doing this for 3 fucking years at a community level. And it's like, and people like us are not viewed as good enough. I'm going to expand on this during the State of the Scene address in a minute. But like fucking hell, man. Like I watched that for about like 3 games during the ESPN section, and I was just like, mates, I can't fucking do this. I turned it off.
You got further than me. I'll give you that.
I turned it off because I'm just like, man. Like,
the problem as well, and I will say it was alleviated. It was a shit match then in the finals. Like that made it even worse, but it was not hype. And that's the thing. When you got poor gameplay going on, even if it is the finals, that's when you need hype casters to try and make it interesting in that. So the whole idea to go over to this more explanatory style when it's a very simple game, like I'd understand it if it was CS on TV or League of Legends because, well, heck, I don't even know what the fuck is going on in League of Legends. So when it comes down to Rocket League, which is the simplest idea of get ball in net, cars can fly. You can pick that up in 5 seconds. So why do you need to continuously try and explain everything out? Just go super hype for it, as if and the worst case scenario is like you're trying to watch football in Spanish. You can't understand what the heck they're saying, but heck is it good to watch because it's so exciting. It's God, that man. Sort of mindset to come into it.
There's a great clip on Reddit where was it Garrett G was watching the stream on his own stream, and he was talking about like how he was talking about how how basically they're just explaining the most basic principles of Rocket League, which you can kind of gather from just watching it. And like that basically breaks down the entire casting. Like, mate,
yeah,
it perfectly summarizes it right there, that whole clip.
And the biggest annoyance there for me is that Landon Donovan guy didn't even know what Rocket League was coming into this. He knew it was a game. Probably was told it's car football. That's all it is. And he was just asking, again, the most basic of questions because he hadn't spent an hour just looking up on YouTube what it was all about.
Well,
and
that's
that,
the key thing,
is
right? That's the key
problem.
thing. That's the key thing. That's one of our pet peeves. Lack of research. Do it. If you're going to go on a fucking broadcast, just do the basics of looking up a fucking VOD or Liquipedia or anything like that. Like, you know, at least the Rival Series casters did that. And they had no experience coming into doing, you know, Rocket League prior to that. Landon made a fucking farce of it. Like, just straight up. I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for that, but fuck it. I don't care. Like, you know, they compromised for the sake of ESPN. They brought this on themselves. And, you know, fuck NA Spring Series is what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you, Trox, for your question. And thank you to everybody else who send questions in for the mailbag. Again, if you want to get involved, and it's very easy to get yourself known on the show, you can send us a question or a talking topic in the mailbag section of our Discord channel. It's in the show notes and video description of every single episode of the podcast. Click that link, get involved in the discussion, get involved in the Aftershock community right about now. Okay. Like I was saying at the top of the show, we've got no new results to bring to you. We're waiting on Superstar League to get kicked off, Bacon. So right now what we'll do is we will bring to you a feature. We'll bring back a feature that we did at the March end of last year. You know, we were about a month late with this one. I plan to do it within this year, a space of a year. But we're roughly in the same sort of position. And again, I encourage for you, if you have not heard the State of the Scene address from 2019, to go to episode 24 of the show and listen to what we did back then, because this kind of going to be very relevant to what we're doing here today. We are going to be revisiting a couple topics that we talked about, and we're going to be doing what we like to do is what I call the State of the Scene address. The best way to describe it is like the State of the Union address, except if it was for Rocket League. And we're going to be talking about all the main talking topics, all of the big things from the last year of discussion on the Reddit thread, on everything else that we've sort of like seen. And we're going to have a conversation about this and talk about various bits and pieces from the scene that we find objectionable or otherwise just sort of want to have open up a dialogue about with us and with the community as well. So that's going to be the general idea of what we're going to do here. And again, a lot of the talking points that we're going to bring up here are also to be found in the last episode, in the 24th episode of the show. So again, if you want to get some context behind what we're talking about, then I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. So that's my starting statement, Bacon. It is really an address. So
we'll say some is positive. Like, just hold on, guys. I mean, it will mostly be negative, but some is positive, which is good.
Let's put it this way, right? If you are willing to have your perception challenged, you'll quickly realize. And if your perception is that Rocket League is the greatest esport, and you're willing to have your perception challenged, your perception will be changed by the end of this episode. Let's put it that way, okay? Let's begin. So, last time that we had a chat about in-game org items was actually on the announcement of the in-game org items. Like, we talked in broad strokes since that point. But I wanted to start with this topic because I feel like it's one of those things that have sort of faded into the back of people's minds since it was implemented. And while it has been implemented, and I'm really happy about that, I still hate the shop. I still fucking hate it. Like, it's still so dumb to me. Like, why can't we just have a marketplace where you can buy the fucking in-game items for the teams that we wanted to support? Like, it just, this rotating stuff really just makes no sense to me, and I find it so stupid, Bacon.
Since day one, we've been there just copy what Overwatch did. You know, quite easily make team colors and that pre-purchase with a logo on it. That can be implemented, and largely what we're asking for since day one was fucking away colors, Jay. Because right now, if like I'm just going to say from a caster's perspective, when everyone is driving around in black cars, because that's just predominantly esports in the whole, it's all edgy. You can't figure out who's on which team. Even worse is like with the reciprocity decal when there's a blue player using that, and you're just there going, why? Why do you make this harder, not only for yourself, but your teammates to figure out who you are? Because, I mean, players are dumb. So they're looking across, looking for a blue car, and all they're seeing is orange. They're not going to give a pass across. Come on. Why are you doing that to yourself, buddy?
Yeah, and that was one of the frustrating things for me as well. But it's like, you know, just the idea of buying an esports item can sometimes be a challenge for some people. It's like, yo, come on, guys. Like, you know, it's so basic to do it because, like, you've got it for every other item in the game. Why not just copy that marketplace and put it into the esports shop? Like, I know the argument is we have to be different. No, you don't have to be different. Just be good. Just be good for fuck's sake. You know, that's all I want.
To make their own system, because there is no other system for making esports items. It's like, that's going back to even when they said it, and you're just there going, really? Have you just not done like a 5-minute quick search of what CS or what? Like I said, Overwatch, just because I love the Overwatch system, questionable game with esports, but the actual esports items and purchasing is so good. Like, you cannot, like, that is the perfect template, I'm just saying.
Absolutely, and I have to agree with that respect. So just sort it out, guys. That's one of the big things with the in-game items. I know a lot of people don't talk about it because it is like a bit of a regurging topic, but that's kind of what State of the Scene is supposed to be about. Like, you know, let's get some improvements to the in-game items and the marketplace that it's used. The other thing as well was that we're still not seeing the inclusion of a lot of great teams and organizations involved. We haven't heard anything on the announcements to bring Endpoint into the fold as of right now. Obviously, Reciprocity are going to be fading out, so we need to think about how Genji are going to get involved in this one. And for a team that also transferred organizations while they're in the championship series, like if there's any delay to that team getting its in-game items, like I think that would be a great travesty. As well as that, we still haven't seen organization items for Singularity and FC Barcelona, who have been part of this scene for 3-4 seasons now.
Yeah,
and they still have not seen an in-game item, which we've talked about the legalities behind teams like FCB being involved, but it's like, what is the delay in terms of the other organizations getting involved?
So it always seems like Psyonix's rule, and this did sort of come up, I can remember it, was they've got to spend a season within the RLCS before they can get those org items in game. So their second season they'll get them, so expect Endpoint, Singularity to get them this next upcoming season, but that's September. That's after being a year within the esports scene, you gotta think. And for a lot of orgs, I mean, it was enough to do stuff like push ninjas in pajamas and IP away, you know, Jay? So yeah, that's very telling. And then you've also got the stuff of, like, still, even after all this time, we only get 2 cars with esports items on it, the Octane and the Dominus. Like, the move out, the requests, the complete yells out for even the Fennec. And we're not talking about any other items, of course. I can understand that maybe it's down to them more personally designed around certain cars. But why did you have to make it, like, why didn't they just go with, say, a sticker system instead? Why did they have to make them so nuanced? And you can tell as well from the back of this that Psyonix needs to grow its team, because you look at the I'm going to say battle pass, I think it's rocket pass, items, and how many of those are just like regurgitated forms of previous items that are already out there, just slapped on a different car. And you can see that it's probably down to the team not being a big enough size to be able to fulfill that sort of need, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I can understand where people would be left out in that respect, but since everyone has the Octane and the Dominus, like, you know, I don't think it's too much of a worry in that respect. I would like to see more inclusions. Like, obviously, we had a big thing in Madrid last year where we did the show and everyone was like, well, what should we include in the esports shop? And I'd like to see other things like antennas and such and wheels being added. So, you know, I'd like to see some of those things get implemented, but like it seems like that probably won't end up being the thing. Another thing I also wanted to talk about actually is player-specific items, because for organizations, obviously it's great them having team items, but like I don't know how much of that rubs off to the players, because we don't know how much is given to the players.
Probably nothing.
Probably nothing. But like Counter-Strike have a system in place where, you know, where they separate between organizations and teams. In particular, there's obviously the signature capsules where you can buy signature stickers that you can place on your gun skins in Counter-Strike, and those signatures are courtesy of the players. 100% of the of obviously Valve take their cut, but the rest of it all goes directly to the players' bank accounts, and the organization doesn't touch it. Whereas the org stickers for the actual teams themselves goes directly to the organization, and that sort of like goes, you know, in how they split that. And it's like, how cool would it be to get a fucking Turbo Pulsar signature decal or something like that, or Turbo Pulsar signature antenna or team wheel or whatever have you. You know, there's a lot of options in that respect, and I'd like to see what that would end up being, and I'd like to see that being a plausibility, you know.
That's why, like, one thing I'm going to ask, I'm going to put the idea out there again with the stickers, would be to get stickers where it's either you can do the little circle, like, you know, a racing circle, put numbers in that's just say, like 07, if that's like, you know, your number you want to put on everything because that's how you identify. But also you could get like little writings, cap it off at say 10 letters to fit on the side of your car or on the spoiler, wherever you want to paste it on the car, and do that. And then you just have, like you said, player signatures. So they're just that one image. So you could, if you wanted to be a cheapskate, write out turbo pulsar or turbo on the side of your car, sure. But then you wouldn't get the very specific turbo, like if it was a physically drawn signature, on the side of your car. And a lot of players do want that shit, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, like, like I say, like, I don't have affinity to organizations per se. Like, I have favorite teams in certain cases, but like, I don't, and a lot of people also see this way is that they follow players for players rather than teams for, the organization branding. Like, if fucking NRG moved to Cloud9 today, then all NRG fans of Rocket League will be Cloud9 fans tomorrow.
Ghost. So, and Envy moving from their old previous team. Now they're over on they picked up the ex-Ghost side, that dropped them. And you're there going, so are those old Envy fans like moving over completely? Like, did the guys that liked that would have then, I guess, moved over to TSM now just completely move over to NA and drop the EU side of things? No, they still would have supported the TSM lads and probably don't give a shit about the NA side of things.
Yeah, and in that respect, like, I think that, to add more attachment to the players would be a good idea for the for in-game items. One thing as well about the financials of the items themselves, I know that items can be expensive, but we also don't know what the actual split is still for organizations, for players, and for Psyonix themselves, because we've heard bits and pieces about it, and we've heard how like the prize pool should be increasing with all sales, but they keep advertising the same prize pool numbers over and over again, and I don't know, we don't know what it is with the fucking prize pool and how the items add to the prize pool, because that was one of the things that they sold us on. It was like, hey, all sales will be going to, or a portion of all sales will go to an increased prize purse for the rest of Rocket League. And it's like, okay, sure, but why are you advertising the same numbers there and then? And also, how much of these items, and if they're advertising the same numbers, to me, it implies to me that sales are overall low. And it's like, okay, if that's the case, then how much money is actually going to the organizations? And if that's the case, how much money is going to the players? This is information that we still do not know. Even though Psyonix has said we're going to be transparent about this, they haven't actually been that transparent about it at all,
I mean, they like the word transparent, but I don't think they actually know what it means. That's the crux.
I mean, that's something we're coming to a little bit. But please continue your point, Bacon.
But the biggest thing here, and it's one that people suggest in the past, do what Dota do. Put out an esports item each season, the RLCS, whatever it be, and then all the profits, or you say a certain amount, let's say 75% of it, 25% will go to Psyonix, whatever. 75% then goes into the prize pool to buff it above that current 1 million that's being put on in, and then that just gets added on and then is split however way. I would ideally hope 25% to each region, because OCE and SAM are already much lower than EU and NA, and that pick them up a little bit. What an easy way would that be, to really buff that out, because everyone else would be able to see that they're helping those regions. You're small, let's just say each season, like, I don't know, $2.99 decal. I know that's quite expensive for a decal, but I mean, the esports item's already egregious, so whatever. Just add that on. You can show it off on your Octane and do a double pack, Octane and Dominus, for, like I said, £3, $4, whatever. And then you see that money go over to the prize pool, and then have a tracker. It's only available for, let's say, 4 weeks, a month beforehand in the run up to the event. And then you see it on the website. I mean, again, Psyonix's website needs to be upgraded, but you could see that tracker keep going up, and everyone would be so hyped about being able to get this massive prize pool. And then as well, instead of having this weak ass $1 million prize pool that it's been for God knows however long, I could actually see it pop up to, let's just say, 5 million, which would then really pop, Rocket League on a bigger scale, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and in that respect, like, I just think that we just need to overhaul the system once again. Like, I understand we got a system in place, and it's great that we have a system in place now compared to last year where we didn't have one. But like, again, Psyonix have been all talk and no action in that respect, and I think that needs to change for the sake of revenue sharing, because there's still conversations going on about franchising in this esport, and we don't fucking need it if we put the right systems in place with in-game org items. But That's what I think on that respect. That's what we believe on the in-game org items. Let's move on and talk about third-party tournaments. Mm-hmm. We're in the same position as we were last year when we did this discussion, Bacon. Disregarding Nice Cactus and Rocket Baguette, which we'll come to in a minute, third-party tournaments still are virtually non-existent in the Rocket League space. And when I say third-party tournaments, I mean above bubble scene level, like, something to support the pro teams and the rival series teams. Now, I know that TEI was a thing, but the restrictions in place with that seem to got bypassed exclusively because one guy was funding it. And based on the fact that Psyonix have allowed that to go through, they are absolutely happy with that shit going on when it's clearly has potential to be absolutely corrupt. With respect to that as well, by the way, it seems that they are not happy with adding sponsors to other third-party tournaments because they don't get a cut of the pie, is what it feels like to me, Bacon, because they were happy to let Incivic sponsor the TEI tournament, but they were absolutely...
Think of Astro as well.
Sorry?
Think of Astro, the Beyond series as well.
Exceptions to the rule, okay? But here's the thing, right? If you listen to the subpar but in HD Pod EC, where they did an interview with Johnny Boy, it was heavily intimated that Psyonix let it go through because it was one person and not a sponsor, and because they didn't need to vet that sponsor. Which, if you're having to do that when we've got sponsors that are of the caliber of Overwatch League and Counter-Strike in the top end of those scenes that have no shady business practices going on, outside of the regular sort of corporate bullshit, like if you have to vet those kind of sponsors and you're willing to let a guy who owns the team sponsor a tournament with his team in it, that seems very backwards to me. And again, I will bring up the Omen tournament that got cancelled in the summer of last year that I was hired to fucking work, like that's Omen by HP, Hewlett Packard. The same fucking computer organization who have done, many big things in, computing as a whole. They obviously sponsor the Omen brand, who have been one of the biggest sponsors of esports in the last couple of years. Like, that's a massive sort of tournament sponsor to have. And those guys got rejected versus, someone like Incivic who got through. And again, nothing against Incivic in that respect, but let's be real about this. How viable is it for people individually to keep funding these tournaments? Like, it's not. It's just absolutely not.
The only answer now is to go find some sort of like rich Saudi prince or whatever who for some reason loves flying cars and Rocket League in general. Because that is the only answer we've got right now with Europe.
Are we going to become James Bond, the Rocket League tournament? Like, what the fuck is this?
But yeah, it's also fucking odd, and like we can say, like Spring Series, for example, like we said, was being produced by DreamHack. To me, that feels very much like they just needed a quick solution to it, and DreamHack is offering their, services. They can provide everything quite good. Yeah. I will say the qualifiers not being done as well on an official basis feels like a little bit of a letdown, and I'd imagine that'd be because Psyonix didn't want to pay the money for that, because it's extra cost on top. But the leak down where the option where those qualifiers then are broadcasted by the community level is okay, for me, but it just seems very, very odd. So where you're going now, okay, you've got DreamHack that can put on stuff, great. Can we look towards these other companies that can also provide similar services throughout the whole of, say, Europe, America, OCE, and NA, and trying to actually back those guys and trying to get them on a more official level? And as a state, like, I know we'll go with the visibility and that later on. Why are we clearly not doing, and we've said it in the past, a very similar thing to Rainbow Six, where we just now try and plug everything that is officially Psyonix sanctioned on the official Rocket League.
We're coming to
Twitch.
That.
Yeah,
we're coming to that in a minute. By the way, trust me, I've got a little something to say about that shit. You bring up a good point about the DreamHack thing, because it's like, we have not heard anything about DreamHack hosting their tournaments. And again, I wholeheartedly believe that DreamHack did the best tournaments in 2019 for Rocket League.
Yep.
The production value was awesome. The only major issue they had was a fire alarm in Valencia. I know the B streams were a little bit shit because probably they were a little bit hampered for cash. Obviously, that's the way that things sort of work in the DreamHack business, because that's MTG don't really like funding DreamHack. They love funding ESL, but DreamHack don't get as much love as they do. And usually when they have to make cuts, it's DreamHack that are the first heads on the chopping block.
Well, and the DreamHacks have to fall in line with the actual LAN events as well. So that's why you're given a little slice, a corner out of the LAN hall rather than its own specific event. So that's why when you look at the crowd, at early points of the day, it's dead empty because it's people that are more interested in looking around the venue, looking around the different stuff that's going on. And then towards later on in the day, it's completely packed, you know? So it's just part of the nature of what the tournament is.
Yeah, and like again, like even with the Intel World Open going through, and obviously that got kind of fucked by coronavirus, which is fair play. Obviously, everyone's going to canceling their events because of that. Even then, like after Intel World Open, we had no information on what was going on outside of the. We obviously know that season 10 is going to happen soon. Obviously, we know that the RLCS is going to be in the same place as it always has been. We've obviously expect that to be the case, but when it comes to other third-party tournaments and stuff in the off season, especially. We don't know anything about that, and it feels like Psyonix just don't want to trust third-party organizers, and the community guidelines especially have been so egregious not to allow any other tournaments to crop up. Again, with some exceptions applying, there's just been nothing going on, and we'll move on to the community guidelines thing in a moment here, Bacon. You seem to have something you want to say here?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not also that they don't trust them, it's just that they're so narrow and short-sighted. Psyonix always seems to look to the next 6 months, not to the next 2
Fuck
years.
the next 6 months, probably the next 3 months.
Yeah,
let's be real.
that's the biggest problem.
That's the thing. Right now, the only thing we've got coming up is Spring Series. After Europe's done, what else is there? Like we've got Rising Stars.
June, July. Well, sorry, most of May, June, July, August, and then you're expecting the same timescale with RLCS starting in September. So that's 4 months of not knowing what the fuck is going on.
That's the thing, right? Like it's like this is the perfect opportunity to let the fucking community take the reins. Like Psyonix going to be hampering for cash in the esports department. I know it's going to get slashed to hell. So let's get some outside investment in. Again, let DreamHack run a fucking Dream League or something. Let ESL run an ESL 1. Obviously they've rebranded all their offline tournaments to become online things right now. Like ESL 1 is currently the Road to Rio, which is a big online tournament that builds up to the major in November. Assuming the lockdown gets lifted by that point. Like that's the situation we're at right now. Like ESL have done a great job at adapting their products to be like in line with that. So let's run an ESL 1 Rocket League. Let's run a DreamHack Open Rocket League. Let's run a Dream League Rocket League. That'd be fucking awesome if they could do what they do in Dream League and take it over to the Rocket League space. We've also got other online tournament organizers that are stepping up to the plate. You've got a bunch of different guys that have started new businesses with ties to Valorant, obviously, and those guys have interest in Rocket League as well. Let's do that shit. There's Call of Duty organizations that I've spoken to who have said, hey, we want to run a Rocket League tournament, so let's do a let's talk about this. How can we make this possible? And it's like they've had some great ideas. They've been limited once again by the community guidelines, and the community guidelines do so much, not just to a community level, but they also cut off any opportunities for professional businesses to do anything in the Rocket League space. And people have been begging for another DreamHack circuit. They've been begging for ESL to get involved with Rocket League, and we've just not had those opportunities because Psyonix again only focus on their bottom line and their tunnel vision to anything else. They don't focus on anything else other than what they can get out of the Rocket League space, and they're hoping to get direct money out of it. It doesn't work like that, guys. It doesn't fucking work like that.
And the community guidelines, yeah, just to, like you said, there are so many different organizations, tournament organizers that are looking at this and going, we know, and from seeing it, like, with TEI, if we put down 20,000 euros, we can get the top teams to sign up, or at least, as long as we give them spots, let's just say an 18 league and 4 spots instantly go to the RLCS teams. The next 4 spots can go to whoever. As long as we don't run them on RLCS weekends or going alongside the Psyonix stuff, we're happy to do that. But the problem is they don't want to wait around for months to get the response of Psyonix. They don't want to have to, ask Psyonix for every single, thing they want to do, vet their sponsors, whatever. They just want to be able to go, okay, we're going to put this on next month. We want to start building this up right now. They don't want to be at the whim of the game developer. They're their own business. They should be able to run their own business, instead of having to be second to them.
And that's the key thing, right? When you've got situations like this cropping up, why would sponsors want to get involved in Rocket League when they can do the same sort of shit in Rainbow Six and Counter-Strike without having to do anything right now? They can get involved in Valorant. Valorant's the next big fucking thing. Why the hell would they want to invest in Rocket League when they're like, they've got big numbers posted by the Valorant side. The hype is all above it. Now is the time to be involved in a game like that. And it's like, why the fuck would they want to get involved in Rocket League when we still got the same restrictions in place? And again, I'm not just talking about small community tournaments here. I'm talking about big sponsors. Omen is one. LG is another, by the way. We've had loads of fucking big names come and go behind the scenes without making a fucking sound because they take a look at what they can do in Rocket League. They send questions to Psyonix, and then they realize, actually, we don't want to do this because this is fucking stupid.
And the biggest one I know of is stuff like Red Bull. Like we've talked to some of the lads in that before. And the funniest thing was, I saw the other day, Red Bull announced a 20,000 euro tournament for Age of Empires. And you're just there going, oh boy, why? Like,
that's
if you're getting to that.
Here's the thing. You would get a better return of investment if you did a $20,000 tournament in Rocket League. And they're doing Age of Empires, which is going to get fuck all out of it, exclusively because they are actually allowed to do it. Okay,
they don't have to ask any questions.
They don't have to ask permission from fucking
weeks.
anybody. Okay, but they are not going to make the money off the back of that. They are not going to be able to promote and do stuff with Age of Empires. They could do it with Rocket League, though. Do you know what the problem standing in the way is? It's the community guidelines. And again, who the fuck are Red Bull, by the way? They are only one of the biggest fucking energy drinks on the planet. Only one of the biggest energy drink sponsors, one of the longest standing sponsors in terms of, Rocket League. And not Rocket League, esports as a whole, And with a product like Rocket League, which has had some of the biggest, names, brands in the world come by and go through the RLCS, like Red Bull would be an amazing sponsor to have. Here's the thing. They don't want to get involved in RLCS until they get their tester event out there. And that's what we need to do. Raise the bar so that with the tester events actually have some prominence in these in this scene. And then sponsors can test out what it would be like to get involved at the highest level of Rocket League. Because that's what we need right now. More support up there, and that trickles down to the support down here in the bubble scene,
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. Because you look at what stuff like... Let's just keep on the Red Bull point. Like, you get Red Bull finally starting to put on these little occasional off-season ones to Rocket League. What's to stop them from taking, like, their, the Red Bull Player 1 series that they do for League of Legends, and actually, like, again, I could see it's easily done with Johnny Boy and promoting 1v1s within its own little bubble, its own little space within Rocket League. Like, there are so many link-ups, so many things that would be easily able to work, but the problem, as always, stems down to this is a company that doesn't want to have to go to Psyonix for every little thing it wants to do. It wants to just be able to run it on its own, side by side, respectfully, because it's a big company, of course. They're going to do it out of full respect because they want to be able to maximize their own business as well. But it all comes down to these community guidelines, which, as of last land, so all the way back in December, were being looked at and might be changed, but we're now 5 months on and no difference at all.
And it has led to this fucking stupid barren situation where the only thing we can compete in is Psyonix tournaments, with the exception of some of the bubble scene stuff, which we'll move on to right about now here, Bacon. I did say I was going to talk about. This is going to be fun now. Here's the thing, right? The bubble scene, from a financial standpoint, has actually done well since we last did the show here, Bacon. Mm-hmm. And that's in spite of the restrictions posted up by Psyonix. Now, Rocket Baguette are fucking geniuses, by the way. I know a lot of people have differing opinions about them, but, personally, having worked with them, I love that their game plan is actually now, rather than to host a bunch of big tournaments, is to host loads and loads of small ones instead. And that's worked wonderfully for the Rising Stars here. I have to say that I got to tip my hats off to Nice Cactus. Fucking, you guys are the heroes of the bubble scene. You're the only reason why we are even in content right now, because, there would be nothing else to talk about after this week. If we only had spring series, we could do the spring series next week, and then after that we're fucked for the entire rest of the next tournament that gets announced by Psyonix. Essentially, there's been nothing else going on, but because of the fact that they supported Rising Stars and they supported the weekly tournaments, which are now prominent thanks to Nash Cactus, they supported bi-weeklies and other stuff to help support Rising Stars teams. They've done so much. They've done so much to bring us content and to bring investment into the Rocket League space. And all of this in spite of what Psyonix have put against them and tournament organizers like Rocket Baguette. And for that reason, Nice Cactus, I want to go on record and say fucking thank you, guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, big shout out to those lads helping the grassroots and the bottom level of esports be able to thrive in an area where the own developers don't give two shits about it. I mean, they don't even give one shit. And what you see, what they're putting out is, again, because they've got the great connection there with Rocket Baguette, and Rocket Baguette now pushing for an English broadcast as well, the Rocket RB on Twitch, you'll notice that they're trying to push out an English one as well, because they're trying to expand as much as they can, try and encompass the whole, basically, Europe within the scene. And it is all down, and this is no joke, to one company. Well, two with Rocket Baguette helping on out, I guess, that has been able to turn a barren wasteland into a bit more of a thriving scene. Don't get me wrong, there are other community tournament organizers out there, and, you know, we tip the hat to, you know, Rocket Kingdom, Rocket Core, or Imperial League, and all of that sort of lot, don't we, Jay? But those tournaments where you're offering, say, at most 50 quid or whatever, they should be the lads at the very bottom of the bubble to thrive and get their experience, as well as the up and coming players that aren't quite there yet. Whereas Nice Cactus has been able to just really maintain the bubble scene as a whole, and it's very much needed.
Yeah, like I think with tournament organizers like Rocket Kingdom and Rocket Core, they are community level, whereas like I think Nice Cactus is bubble level. I think we need to sort of like readjust the definitions here, because anything lower than a rival series is considered bubble. I don't think that's an accurate sort of description of how we need to see it sort of treat the scene. So yeah, in that respect, I have to say, like, hats off to the guys who are working to make all that shit possible, because like legitimately there would be no bubble scene today if we didn't have all that investment. Unfortunately, while we have made steps forward in the business side of things, we have made steps back in the professionality side of things, because the bubble scene mentality is a fucking joke, okay? I'm just going to say straight up here, there are people in the bubble scene that have been openly racist, transphobic, and general dickheads to community figures and other players and their respective fucking players in the scene. And those guys are the most prominent figures, by the way. They are the most fucking imbecilic people I think I've seen in all of esports, right? Not just because it's going to be negatively impacting their career, it also negatively impacts the rest of the bubble scene, because Psyonix look at this shit and they wonder, why the hell should we invest in the bubble scene? After Renegade Cup, after all the shit they had to put up with that, and then seeing stuff like this on public social media, like, you're fucking it up for everybody else, you know? And it's not just all that, like not even that's just like from a general interaction player per TO, it gets even worse, because rather than go through the necessary channels to give feedback to the tournament organizers and try and get things going, like TOs just get blasted on Twitter, like just get absolutely fucking rinsed by whoever the hell will listen, whoever the hell will want to tweet. Again, you can easily go ahead and approach the community manager or the necessary like individuals, the admins that are running the scenes, and say, look, this is a piece of feedback I want to give to you. This bit is shit. Can we get it fixed? It's not that hard. It really is not that hard. It might be a little bit of time before it gets fixed, sure, but the level of shit that I've seen from people saying we only get automated responses, that's bollocks. That's bollocks, because I've been behind the scenes at those things, and I've never seen any automated response, right? You're just going through the wrong channels because you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you're taking it out on the TO because you're a fucking bellend, okay? And this is the kind of shit that really also affects further investment in, because why would a company who's basing their entire sponsorship on the marketing take a look at social media and think that's good marketing? It's not. It's not. What's going to happen then? They're all going to pull out. You'll be left with nothing. That's what's going to happen if you keep going on that way. And people just don't seem to understand that. And I understand that criticism is fair and you need to give criticism, but give it in the right way rather than just being a childish prick on the fucking internet, right? And that's the thing, right? So in relation to Nice Cactus, I just want to say that everyone complaining that Glory for Gamers is a shit platform does not understand what business is, okay? Because Glory for Gamers is owned by Nice Cactus. Why in the fuck would they go and use Smash, a competing platform, in order to run their tournament? It's such a stupid, short-sighted thing that bubble players don't ever consider. It's like, how are these things funded? You know, how do they make money? They don't go. That's like asking BT Sport to broadcast on Sky Sports. That's what it's fucking like. Like that's so dumb. It's so dumb. Of course BT won't be broadcasting on Sky, because it doesn't help them. They need to make money just like the rest of us fucking do. And so do Nice Cactus. They need to use Glory for Gamers, the platform that they bought, and they need to make sure it's a success. Otherwise, they go under. And then when they go under, you lose Nice Cactus Weeklies. You lose the Rising Cups. You lose the Rising Stars. Okay? That's the bottom line of it, okay? If you have a problem with Glory for Gamers as a tournament platform, go take it to the admins. Go tell them how they can improve. And if you say that it's because of API access and you can't do automatic results, go tell that to fucking Scheist. Go tell that to Psyonix, because they are the reason why Glory for Gamers can't have those features, because they won't release the API access to fucking anybody. It's not their fault. Take your anger out on the right people or give constructive feedback. And that is the fucking thing that I hate about the bubble scene the most. That is the reason why I'm no longer working in the bubble scene, because I can't fucking take it anymore. You cunts are starting to get blocked by me because you are fucking assholes. Rant over. Please, Bacon. That's a constructive point.
I don't think I have anything constructive because, don't get me wrong, you've got a couple of nice kids, but the nice kids aren't going to be the ones talking out and singing praise because you don't do that. Like, there's no need for it. Like, another example of it, like, and this was the one that hit closest to home with me was, and you as well, Jay, of course, was back with the Blanc. Now, it's just a UK-only tournament purely to put it on because it's owned by Game, a store chain. Think of it the same as like GameStop over in America, and they're putting on these tournaments, just online cups during this downtime. And it was the first week. We knew going into that night, Jay, didn't we, that the format was going to be wrong. But of course, they've got to learn it because they're trying to put a very simple format across all their different games. So going into that first week, we knew it was going to get changed up for the second week. And instead of instantly just blasting on social media, shit like, oh, who wants to be up to 11 o'clock, playing a game for however much and all that, just literally acknowledge and give good feedback. Just be there simply like, oh, could we just next week get a single elim multiplayer just because I've still got school in the morning, that sort of thing. You just do it politely because it doesn't hurt you, and then the team will look away, and they probably already know because naturally us as casters don't want to be there at 11 o'clock after 5 hours still casting.
Oh, absolutely. We're tired as well, by the way.
Yeah, we'll change the format. It's hard. Like, I'm saying we've changed form. Me and Jay don't have a say over that, but the guys behind the scenes are still working. They're paid a certain amount that evening, and they're going to try and get the best, most efficient product out there. So you blasting it is not helping anyone. You're just basically hurting the scene because, again, that's just hurting all the advertisement that's going on. It's hurting what the heads up at Game are going to be looking at that. The same like we were saying with Nice Cactus over on the platform. Like, you're not actually doing anything productive. You're just, I guess, venting. But could you keep those vents down to you and your mates in like DMs or something? Because otherwise you're just being a massive dick.
Well, let me share with you a bit of insight on Belong and on Game's approach to sort of like esports as a whole, because they've been wanting to cut it out of their product for the longest fucking time, okay? Like the team at Belong and Insomnia as well, because Insomnia is owned by Game. So the guys that are working there's like a team of like 3 or 4 people, and they have to do all of the entire esports operations from the arena clash to the Insomnia stuff. All that shit needs to be done by a small little group. Okay, not adding the admins that are at the arenas themselves, because they don't really count, because they're just general store workers that have been reapplied to do adminning because they don't have staff on the site. So you've got a very, very small team of people struggling to get through the regular tournaments they've got already, getting hammered on social media because they see that shit. They're the guys that are taking the abuse front and center. And they're the guys that are saying, look, give us feedback directly and we'll help you out. And the people that are not giving, and there's people out there that are not doing that, giving a blast on social media, the heads see that and they get more reasons to cut the budget of that esports department, okay? And it's been going on for years with Game, okay? I know that from experience because I've been working for Game since 2016. It's been such a fucking struggle to get shit like a Belong going and Marina Clash going and Insomnia Masters going. Like, all of it has been such a fucking just a struggle, and people have felt the strain of that, and you're not helping that situation because people get depressed and people don't want to fight anymore. And then when they lose those jobs, then you're the ones who are responsible for it. But they don't care. Bubble scene people don't care, because at the end of the day, what do they want? They want their $210 a week. Hopefully, and that leads to other shit as well. There's the downright malicious people as well, Bacon. I have to say, there are individuals out there that will take technicalities and do their best to twist them to their advantage. Like, there was one particular incident a few weeks ago in a Nice Cactus Weekly, where someone, there was a disconnection issue, and rather than play to the spirit of the rule and let them replay in the overtime, which I think that they should have done, they were like, actually, no, there's this one little section here that says if you don't disconnect when the DC happens, then you absolutely need to be disqualified and such. And there were admin confusions about the level of the rule, because one admin wanted to imply the spirit of the rule, one admin wanted to apply the gospel of the rule. And it's like, that's not how it should be done, guys. We need to we need to play things as the way to make it as fair as possible. But players don't give a fuck about fair as possible in the bubble scene. They don't give a damn about that. They want to be like, I want to win. I want to win, and I'm going to do everything I can to win. Like, fuck you if you have that mentality. Like, you are such a scumbag. Absolute fucking scumbag if you think like that. And I should add, by the way, this is mostly European scene, bubble scene, because I don't have any experience in the North American scene, bubble scene. I've been told it's much better than Europe, but that's my experience so far in the bubble scene, and it has been a fucking farce.
It's weird. NA bubble scene is better, but NA top end is absolute garbage, to the point, like, we were saying, doing some of the stuff with Daz, and just how you get RLCS teams that won't even mark themselves off on Smash because they can't be asked. They've got someone at their org that will do that for them. And you're just there going, Smash is automated. Can you not just put in the lobby details instead of doing a generic, I'll invite you because you're on my friends list and get the two teams in that way? Which, just come on. When it comes down to small community organizers, give them as much help as you can. Don't be fucking assholes.
It's like, it doesn't even require that much work, Again, just do what the fucking tournament platform asks you to do,
They should actually be, there probably is rules amongst there where they would be DQ'd out of that. Like, they would have to forfeit just because they're not putting in the results because they can be forged. Again, you skip those rules purely because of the fairness, and they're still playing, they're not technically cheating if their opponents agree to, that's what it was.
The spirit of the rule.
Yeah, it's the spirit of the rule thing, not following the rule by paper. And it just takes you guys to get absolutely fucked over, which, again, you'd go blast it on social media, and you'd still be in the wrong.
Should be noted, by the way, that whole rule disconnection thing was also blasted up in Twitch chat, on Twitter, and everything. And they did everything they could to rally as many people to get pressure onto Nice Cactus to fucking, to change the result. And that was absolutely stupid. So fucking childish. But that is the reality of the bubble scene. And I've got probably some more bones to pick with people. Again, I'm not going to hold back anymore. Like, if you're being a cunt, I'm going to call you out publicly for it, and you're going to get blocked on Twitter. I'm done with the bubble scene. You're all cunts. You're all a bunch of fucking cunts. Anyway, from the
there are
bubble
a few
to the
gems
pro,
out there. We have to say they're not all cunts, but there are.
Here's the thing: if I say you're all cunts, obviously that doesn't apply to the people who aren't cunts, and those people already know who they are. Okay, so I'm talking a generalization there. If you think you're not one of those people, or if you're not sure if you're one of those people, then you're a cunt. Okay, straight up. Let's move on. Career viability
cunt
for
until
professional.
Proven innocent. That's the new rule in here.
Let's move on to the professional side of the scene then, because the bubble scene can go fuck themselves. We're going to talk about career viability now, because it's still in a bit of a weird spot at the moment, and I honestly think that on the whole, it's gotten worse. And we're going to go down the list here in the same sort of way that we did in episode 24. So, casters. So, as per last time, the casters in the community have virtually no chance of making it into Rocket League relevancy. And the main reason for that is because Psyonix's hiring decisions are whack as fuck. Obviously, we mentioned the whole Landon Donovan thing earlier in the show today. But even then, there are so many bubble scene casters or community casters that go remiss for various reasons. And I understand that there's a level of understanding to that. There's a level of sort of there's a level of look, we don't think these guys are good enough to make it into the professional level. I understand that. That's fine. Not everyone can do that, But then we've got people like Dazarin who are pushed into CRL above and denied rival series broadcasting spots above guys who have never done Rocket League in the first place. Now, that's nothing against Spaceman Supersonic F. I think that they did a great job in the season. But I honestly cannot see a world where the meritocracy works to have those guys come into rival series versus Dazarin, who has done every single community organized event under the sun, and even runs his own events to put money into the scene.
So many different lands as well.
Yeah, yeah. He is given so much. Why is he not getting a spot towards the rival series? And I understand that Dazarin is absolutely happy with the CRL thing, and I'm thrilled that he's got himself a chance to work with Psyonix directly. But if that was me, I would have told them to go fuck themselves in that position. Given the amount of stuff that Dazarin is given to the Rocket League scene and only given a chance to work on CRL, not even getting the plausibility of doing rival series, I would have just turned around and gone to another fucking game right there and then. Just fuck that noise. That's so whack.
Yeah, and again, like when you look towards it, like that's not just to Daz, of course, the CRL, but everyone else that's currently in the bubble scene, casting wise in NA, because again, we accepted as EU boys, we got no hope in hell to get on a Psyonix stream, even with it now being all online. Like we've got no like expectation to be asked, oh, are you available for the EU Spring Series? Nah, that's not going to happen.
We should do this because we've been putting the fucking work in of our own right. So, you know, like I'm absolutely against that prospect. And well, that's another thing as well we can talk about here. The relevancy of other sort of regions. Actually, we'll come to that in a second, actually, because like I did want to talk about the new rival series guys, Spaceman and Supersonic. Because like, I understand bringing in guys like Praggy and Gillyweed into the hosting role because they don't have prior knowledge and prior like experience working in Rocket League. And in that respect, I can absolutely understand a host coming in because the host asks questions and gets feedback from the experts. But bringing in actual casters to be part of the scene is something that I'm wholeheartedly against because there are so many others that can do a better job from the word go, Bacon. And I know that you had some opinions about the guys, you know, like I know you have some opinions about the guys that were brought on to the rival series broadcast this time around. So like I kind of wanted to ask you what you thought about them.
So we'll go both Spaceman, Supersonic. I'm going to say Tom, as the host, did a fantastic job. I loved him this season. He actually brought a good amount of energy and enthusiasm to the role. So great job there. Spaceman in the studio really surprised me. He was great in the studio. When it went online, there was a noticeable drop off, and this I'll account to. And Jay, you'll back this up. LAN events in live, if you're in a studio or whatever, you put out a lot fucking more energy. And I will generally say like live casting, I always find is better. You know, because it's like the atmosphere just makes it a lot more hype. Supersonic on the opposite end was more consistent, like when he went online, but it took him a while throughout the season to really just build it up, you know. So it was an interesting one to compare the two, but still, again, even now going into next season, you're just there going like with their casts. And no hate towards the lads because, again, we came in expecting to literally hate these two guys because they had no, Rocket League experience. Like, the bar was incredibly low for them. But still there are guys within the community doing, the bubble scene stuff that are still better casters objectively over in NA than these two lads. And even dependent upon opinion, even there are casters better than say Stax or Subi. They all comes down to opinion. But it's I know that
Stax and Subi have been fucking hammered on Reddit lately, so like like even community opinion is starting to shift on those two. I mean, I understand part of it, I can respect a part of it, but like the other side of the coin for me on this respect with Spaceman and Supersonic was the fact that obviously they came in without any prior knowledge, and for the first few weeks it was very clear that the only major research they did was looking at Liquipedia. Like it's not the same sort of depth that I would have hoped out of like a big sort of like Psyonix supported and created a broadcast package. And again, that infuriates us because obviously we are all about that analysis shit. We do all the stuff that we do. We go hyper in depth with a lot of the shit that we do in the on the show and even in our casting as well. Like some of the stuff we bring up here, we also bring it up in casting in Rival Series B, Stream TCS, Rocket Baguette, all these other things that we do in the scene. But to be fair, give credit where it's due, I have to give a small little shout out to. I gotta find who it was real quick. Give me 2 seconds. I need to just double check. I don't want to mess this up. I do want to give a special shout out at least to Supersonic, who seems like he's made a bit of an effort to try and. To try and be, to do the research as appropriate and be a better commentator and work on his stuff. Because I noticed actually that he was one of the few rival series casters that follow the podcast, for example. And I'm not sure whether he's listening. I hope he is, because honestly, like I feel like that we bring a level of a level of detail that would be very valuable to the guys who are coming into the scene and want to learn stuff about the bubble scene, the rival series scene, so on and so forth. Because we cover it in a way that no other person does. So in that respect, I'll give them credit for making the effort to learn. But again, like I've said before on the show, it is so easy to contact people who are already here. We are some of the most helpful talent members in the fucking esports industry. And I might sound like a bit of a prick. I am. But that's not the thing, right? You know, I'm not a prick by purpose. I'm doing this to put up an act for the show. You know, like if you hit me up in DMs, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you want. Same thing with Bacon as well. Bacon's probably the better guy to ask because he's the expert. I'm just the guy who screams in the mic, okay, right? But like, you know, in that respect, like I can give a little bit of credit to Supersonic, and I'd like to see what he can do going forward. But on the flip side of the coin, again, I feel it as a big kick in the balls, considering that we've done this for so fucking long.
Yep.
And you know, look, for Europe, obviously Europe as a whole gets hard done by. But for North America especially, like if I was in North America right now, like I'd just be fucking checked out straight up.
And I will say with Supersonic, him getting involved with Daz's skirmish, the 2.5K one they did last time, and again, like good on him, because like that work they're not getting paid for, just straight out to the guys at home. And Psyonix would probably just be funding the prize pool as it is. And this just shows that...
Are they even funding the skirmish?
I think so. I'm like I said, that's what I expect. Anyway, because 2.5K is more than Daz has got saved up in the bank. He wouldn't be like, he doesn't have that money. When you compare the spring skirmishes and that beforehand, you know? So like this, and it was like, you know, an official Psyonix thing if you look at all the stuff. So like this is Sonic trying to get in and understand and learn the bubble scene before it hits next season. So he's got the right mindset and he knows the, you know, the graft you got to put in to get there. And we respect that massively.
Yeah, and in that respect, you know, I can see a future for him individually. The jury's out for me for Spaceman, honestly. I don't know. You know, I won't lie to you. I was kind of not really paying much attention to the casting on the stream. I listen with outcasters a lot of the time when it comes to doing the show. So you know, I wasn't really paying attention to him. Supersonic definitely was the guy that stood out to me. But again, like I just feel like we're kind of hitting a brick wall with a lot of the community casters. But I digress. Let's move on and talk about the professionals, the actual pro players. Because I'm gonna give you a small peek behind the curtain here on the show. We were sent some shit that heavily is concerning. Right, let's put it that way. Like it is very concerning for the level of the professional players, because professional players and professional faith in the scene, in the professional scene, is slipping with Psyonix. Players are asking questions which they don't get direct answers to, and organizations are considering pulling out. You know, they are all. There was a DM that was sent, or a group message that was sent to us from a player who I won't say any details. But basically, like the implication was that they were going to lose tens of thousands of dollars because the organization has no idea what's going on in Rocket League right now, and that seems to be a general consensus based on the fact that this was given thumbs up from most of the other pro players that we've also heard from as well. Like. And the response that they were met with from other Psyonix community, Psyonix employees, was just that it was literally one of those PR things like, oh, we're interested in full transparency, so we'll get back to you in a future week. It's like, come on, you know, you did this with the fucking, with the open letter, you know? Mm-hmm. We haven't even heard anything on the open letter, which we'll come to in a little bit time, but it's like, now we're having the same PR question dodging bullshit as we see in public interviews, now being given to the professional players, right? Now, I understand an idea of keeping insider secrets inside the little circle, but mates, this is a new level of Psyonix just dodging every responsibility when it comes to the Rocket League scene, you know?
Yeah, and again, that's going to the guys that are pro players that, you know, this is their work, this is their career, and you can't even answer their questions. And this has been going on and one of the things we got told was that, you know, this has been like, there are still questions asked 3 years ago that have not had answers to them, where there's still ongoing problems and reoccurring problems, and you're just there going, why is this not getting fixed? Why is this not getting answered? This is seriously, like, parts and reasons to this are why some orgs just don't want to get in. It's not viable. Like we said, Jay, you would only see certain orgs jump into Rocket League if it became a franchise league, because otherwise they know they wouldn't get any return of investment. Like, they wouldn't get anything back from it. If you're looking at that, that just makes me look at this and go, it's so shaky. And when you got new orgs looking to get in Rocket League now, they will only put in the money, which they'd be looking to buy an entire team for less than some of the bigger teams as single players are getting paid. You know, it's that reality. Like, and that is absolutely crazy. That it is so different across the board that some teams will only want to put in a very certain amount of money, and how they expected to be able to keep up when other teams are quite happy to, because they've got the, you know, money straight there to just, you know, splurge it, when you've got to be thinking at all the different levels here. And it's just, it makes no sense. There needs to be a better transparency, not only openly, of course, like we said in the past, to the public, but to the players. If players aren't, and orgs aren't actually getting the questions answered, then where do you think that faith is going to go?
It should be noted, by the way, that this all came off the back of the organization not knowing what's going on for the next few months, which goes back to our point of what we were saying. Hey, we don't know what's going on after Spring Series. Well, neither do the professional players know what's going on after Spring Series. And I don't think we've ever been in a situation where that's been a thing. You know, like, you know, I remember that, you know, some professional players have had more insights than us at certain points. Obviously, there was like the DreamHack thing.
The players knew the DreamHacks were coming. Like,
yeah.
And orgs did as well. So that was good. That's why they got, like, you know, picked up and all of that sort of shit going into last year. But going into this year, like, all orgs knew was the Intel World Open, and they were picking up and they were looking to try and formulate teams, a bit like, you know, Viability, to make all national teams, or at least 2/3, so that they could partake in that and try and get their names plastered that way. Otherwise, they have no idea what was going further. And that's also, like, why the reason of it is RLCS or nothing. When you look at the wages going to RLRS players, that, again, is so all over the place that some of them could be on... I don't want to give wages away, of course, Jay, but you're talking, like, definitely not enough to live on at any sort of point.
Absolutely. I mean, for the professional guys, obviously they're in a decent spot because they're because they're in with they're in with a decent job because the contracts at RLCS level is so high.
Look, we wouldn't even feel right calling RLRS professional level.
That's the thing, right? That's the thing, right? Even those guys get hard done by. And I mean, on that respect, you know, obviously, you know, we talked about Bubble C and stuff and how, you know, it's difficult down there. And it's like, you know, even with like Karen, chances are Karen's going to disband. You know, with Metsanarus being rumored to move on to the Triple Trouble lineup, it's like, well, at that point, Remkoe's not coming back. You know, that much is almost a certainty at this point. You know, everyone's been saying it for the longest time ever. But you know, there's a good chance that Karen are going to disband. They're going to leave another open spot in the Rival Series. And it's like, Rival Series is seen as a fucking joke to pro players. And it's like, you're taking a look at their professional career viability, and you understand why. Like, professional players are only existent in the top end of the championship series, and even then, not every player in RLCS is actually, you know, making enough to live off of. In certain cases, like, you know, especially those lower level organizations, you know, the guys who are not the biggest of the big in esports as a whole. So you're taking a look at those guys, and it's like, you worry about them because they are the best at what they do. They put tons of hours into the game. They're not getting compensated properly because the money's not there. And then we see shit like this, where it's organizations are like, "What's the fuck's going on with Rocket League?" No one fucking knows. Not even Psyonix probably know. Like, you know, that's the problem we're seeing right now with career viability in professional play. And we are, and I said it last year, we're at critical mass and shrinking. We have not stopped shrinking since that point, I don't feel like, you know, because we've seen tons of players drop out, tons of people that have gotten burnt out by their game. You know, I feel like that the professional scene landscape is shifting to a really, really weird sort of moment. And it's like, you know, we're not getting more tournaments in. We can't keep growing the game because we're so stuck in this short-sighted mindset. And it's like, where do we go from here? And it's like, well, for professional players, there might not be another place to go from here.
Yeah. Like, you're at a point right now where if you've got questions, you're better off just shaking a Magic 8 Ball. And you'll get at least some response. And I mean,
will there be an RLCS Season 11? 8 Ball? No. Fuck.
Ask again. Okay.
Ask again.
And that's just getting at the moment. That they are a Magic 8 Ball with one response. Psyonix. And it's just, it's horrid. Anyway, next one.
So, content creators. We talked a little bit about this in depth last year, and obviously, as we expect, as most would be expected, like casual content is still more, popular and more viable in Rocket League.
Musty,
Musty,
great to see.
All those guys, it's fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. Fair play to them. They've made a decent opportunity, and I don't blame them for that. I don't think that's too out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But for esports content, we have taken steps back, quite badly. When we did the last State of the Scene address, it was around the time that Gold Rush had shut their doors.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it looked like actually things were getting a bit better because we saw a number of podcasts pop up. ASAP was still doing their thing. We had obviously the guys from Playing with Rockets and doing their Around the Scene show. Subpar brought their podcast back, which was great for a time. Here's the problem, though. When it comes to regular content output, we are the last one standing when it comes to podcasts and regular content in the Rocket League scene. RLAfterShock is the only thing you can rely on to be there week to week. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm saying that because it's just not viable for everybody else. Subpar haven't done a show in a little under 2 weeks. Around the Scene took an extended break for about a month and a half ago, and they came back for a little bit, did a couple episodes, but they haven't done one in another 2 weeks off the back of that, and here's the thing. Around the Scene could easily do so much more because they're not limiting themselves in the same way that we do. We only do one region. They do all of the regions. So when they can't find the justification to turn around and keep doing, the podcast like that, it's not a good sign for me. And this is the thing, right? We actually had plans to bring them onto the show. Like I got talking with Perino recently, and we were going to bring them on to do the World Championship special that we always do every single World Championship, where we do our little prediction game. We talk about the teams and the players, and we try and see who comes out with the most points overall. Obviously, that fell through when the World Championship fell through. But it's like, even those guys have expressed interest in continuing to do the podcast stuff and continue to create content, but it's just not viable, And even from other content stuff as well, like obviously we launched the website recently. We're still yet to see whether that will end up being a success, because I have no idea what's going to happen with that. We've got some content plans, we've got some great team members on, but we're all volunteers, so like motivation can't be kept that high, and I can't afford to pay people. Unfortunately, I wish I could. Trust me, I'd pay everyone the highest rates if I could, but I'm a fucking arse end street rat. So what the hell can I fucking do? And it's like the only viable content, it feels like, it's just the casual content. And for the esports scene, that does not feel like it's a very good thing to me.
That's an example there. You talk about the Subpar Podyssey, they've gone a lot more casual with that, which I love it. I love the podcast, but you can see it's because they're having to acclimatize to what is available to keep that content going,
And yeah, like there's the thing. Like Podyssey was never. It's advertised as like a gaming and Rocket League podcast, which I think is semi-fair. But they've also talked about a variety of other things on the show in the past. So like, I understand. I understand where that whole where they come from with that. And when it comes to esports specific podcasts and esports specific content, like it's just not plausible at the moment. And yeah, it's just a bit of a shame, really, because I think there's so much you could do. I mean, I've wanted to step up my involvement in doing content recently. I've actually had a couple of content plans going together, not only to do Aftershock and the Aftershock website stuff, but also with other things that we that I want to do outside of Aftershock as well. So like we've got a lot of things coming up, and I'm hoping that we can make some sort of change here, because that's one of the things that Aftershock wanted to do, is to inspire people to take up the mantle and create more content for Rocket League, and we've been semi-successful with that, but with the way the game's going, like, I don't know how much longer we can keep that going for,
Yeah, you just look at this right now, like, put it straightforward. Like, after Spring Series, what does Aftershock have to report on, Jay? And you look there, you go, okay, you got Superstar League coming from Nice Cactus, good. I mean, going to be interesting to do an entirely bubble scene, but after that's finished up by the end of May, like we said, June, July, August, there is 3 months of nothing, and we don't want to cut out episodes. We don't want to cut. We might have to move to a bi-weekly podcast because there's nothing really to talk about, but we don't want to do that. And realistically, for a healthy esport, you shouldn't have to do that. There should be something continuously going on, because again, professional players playing the game, getting paid the money they are, should continuously have something to grind and work on.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. For just career viability right now, it's one of those things where it's like, if someone says to me, "Hey, should I become a pro Rocket League player?" I'd be like, "No, go to Counter-Strike." Just like don't.
Which is like currently on like its point.
Oh
of,
yeah, absolutely.
With Valorant coming along, you're there going, like, is Counter-Strike going to die out? Like, is Valorant just going to take its spot? No, I'm saying like a lot of people are questioning that, and you're there going, well, even if it did, I mean, Counter-Strike's probably got a better lifespan still left in it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? When it comes to professional esports, at the very least, like I could see Rocket League being dead in 2 years. I can't see Counter-Strike being dead in 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, unless something massive happens and like fucking Valorant decides they're going to buy out every pro player and just employ them into fucking, their own pro league, then fair play if that's the case. But it's like, for Counter-Strike, it's so much more viable to the point where even I can make a living from doing Counter-Strike tournaments, right? Like, here's a fun fact. I won't say the number, but my day rate for doing Road to Rio is not quite on the level as the rival series casters, but it's close. It's fucking close, right? It is really fucking close. And let's think about this in the context of exactly what I've got, who I am in Counter-Strike. In Rocket League, I'm a guy who goes out and does some decent content for the Aftershock podcast. I do some decent reporting for the website. And in general, you can consider me like a community figure in some sort of respect. Like, most people will know of me in the Rocket League space. No one knows who the fuck I am in Counter-Strike, right? And that is what we're at here, right? Like, that I can make more money from being a tier 4 shitter in Counter-Strike than I can be from being a tier 2 commentator in fucking Rocket League, okay? That is the situation we're in right now. So let us set the bar for how we're at with career viability. So let's move on and talk about the direction of the game. We've talked about this in a little bit of in a little bit in the last couple of things, but like after IWO got raked, it felt like Psyonix had no fucking plan. And I said in previous shows that we need to see them step up the content, step up the tournaments, because this is the perfect chance to capitalize on the fact that no one has anything to watch and no one has anything to see in terms of the sports and competitive nature. This is Rocket League's chance to shine. And we still don't know details on the next big tournament. We don't know what the details are for the next anything. We don't know anything. There's nothing going on. There's no plan. No one knows the direction of the game. Not us, not the pros, not the casters. I don't even think fucking Psyonix themselves know the direction of the game. And, that's concerning. That's very concerning at the moment.
Yeah, and like when you got this gap right now, I'm just looking at it, Jay, and I'm going, okay, shit has just been absolutely shook up because of Corona. You've got a big long gap right now. If you're ever going to make a change to the RLCS format, the RLRS format, like we asked, put in that third tier division, this is the time to do it. If you're going to do an entirely online event, this is the time to do it right now, because you've got that gap. You've got availability to put in there. So you'd like to see that, as well as, like we said, ESL maybe do a partnership instead. They're pretty much they are the sister company to DreamHack. Try and get that in, like you said, a sort of simple case like a Road to Rio or an ESL 1 event could just be slotted on in very easily. Heck, do like a little series of online events across the whole and try and prepare them up for, a November LAM final in addition. Like, it is very easy.
You're basically just taking the model of what ESL and Valve are doing with Road to Rio.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying that would be perfect right now to fill the time and then set a big shit down the line as well, which could fit in after RLCS or in that break between league play and regionals and the finals.
That would be a great way to sort of like design a tournament circuit to fit in with the RLCS. At that point, you can take the RLCS guys and then take the top ranked teams from the rest of the circuit and the online tournaments that you put on in either by yourself or in conjunction with other TOs, and say, look, we'll do like a big fucking like 24 team LAN event at the World Championship. There you go. RLCS teams get their automatic invites depending on where they place in the world, and then other teams get spots invited based on their placements in other tournaments. We might even do a ranking system like Renegade Cup, for example. Like that could be a fucking awesome idea, but none of this shit's been implemented because reasons.
We're not told. They're being transparent with us.
No one is being told. That's the thing, right? We want to be transparent as possible. Therefore, if that's the case, then there's nothing going on in the next 6 months. Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's what Psyonix have basically said. They've shot themselves in the foot by saying we want to be as transparent as possible and then saying nothing. That's what they've done, right? So this is as transparent as we're going to get, guys. This is as transparent as we're going to get. We're going to know no tournaments in the next 6 months, even though this is ripe tournament opportunity. GG, boys. It's fucking over. It's over. Like, we're dead. Like, this is going to be a dead game so fucking soon. And again, I bring back the point about players and viability, because not even the organizations and the players at the top end of the scene, the inner circle, if you will, of Rocket League, does not know where Rocket League is going. If that's not a concerning sign, I don't know what would be. Anyway, viewership. Last time we did the State of the Scene address, we noticed that viewership was down on the whole. We said that obviously, you know, the viewership sort of started to stagnate, and I think that kind of got better with the last World Championship. And I have to say that in general, like, you know, viewership is up in most of the major regions. Yeah, like Spring Series obviously has been great for the North American side. We're still get to see where EU's going. It has been noted that South America and OC have had their time to shine. They were very similar on the viewing numbers, but they were far more than what they would have had if they were hosted on Rocket Street or on what's the fucking not Throwdown. LPL. You know, it'd be very different compared to what if they were hosting on those channels. Which brings me to a point about, you know, something we've said for the longest time ever, and this is kind of the proof in the pudding, is that RL's viewership in the esports dependent is all down to the Rocket League channel. Like, if it's a Psyonix sponsored event, it needs to be on twitch.tv/Rocket League. Just because otherwise it's not going to be viable, because you've created an ecosystem where right now you are the only place, you are the central and main and only place to see Rocket League esports. And anything else that doesn't get on that channel, it just gets fucked. Absolutely fucking rinsed in terms of, like, you know, its viewership. And this is proof in the pudding right here, because, you know, tournaments that otherwise would have gotten 2,000 viewers have had 20 to 30,000 viewers just because they were on the main channel, you know?
Yeah, and it's questioning, like, going forward, like, with any few, like, the biggest question there, of course, was, let's go back to the DreamHack Pro circuit. What would the viewership for that have been if that was on the main Rocket League channel instead of the DreamHack Rocket League channel?
Oh god, it would have fucking popped.
Like, why is this not? And it all comes down to, like, just simple things of, are Psyonix scared of things being put on there because they've got no control? Like, they want full control of this? Like, the mentality behind it is still so broken at the moment. And again, you've got to be looking to join everything together to make it as strong as possible instead of, like, spreading it out thin. Why would you want to spread it out thin, you know?
Yeah, and I just... It just feels so backwards to me in the approach and everything like that, you know. Like, I just feel like, look, Rainbow Six does this all the time. Like, they bring big tournaments onto the main channels. They can showcase the best of the best right there. And if they've got several stuff going on, they have alternative channels for that. I know we've got an RL Esports channel. Obviously, there's all the community TOs and such, which we're going to come to that in a minute. Actually, I want to have another point about another thing. And it's like, you know, just give us a time of day to showcase the best of what the other side can do. And it's like, it just doesn't hurt the product as much, you know? Like, it doesn't really hurt.
Just make a second channel from Rocket League called Rocket League Esports. And that's what you need to do.
Twitch.tv/RL Esports is a thing.
Yeah,
like, it actually is. Well, there's another issue as to why you shouldn't use that. Drops. This is something that actually kind of teed me off a little bit. So for those of you who weren't aware, the Rival, or not aware, the Rival series is actually broadcast on two different channels. There's obviously the Rocket League main channel, which goes on live on Fridays. But as well as that, Rival Esports do the B stream on the weekends, and they and they obviously, you know, they hire in other independent commentators. We do it sometimes. There's other people that do it sometimes. Same tournament. Here's the thing, though. Rival on their channel has significantly less viewership than the Rocket League main channel. You know, and this is like, you know, this isn't like a drop of like a couple thousand. No, like 30 to 40,000 people watch Rival series on Rocket League main. 1 to 2,000 watch it on the Rival series. So that's like a fucking dive off a cliff.
If it's a fantastic game that's coming up, like one that's really hyped, like let's say Weedham Girls vs Triple Trouble, you might reach 3,000 if it's a super hyped up game, of course.
Yeah. And you could put that down to, again, the issue with there being, you know, RL viewership mostly on the main channel, and that certainly is an aspect to it. The other aspect, though, is drops. And this is what convinces me that drops is fucking harmful to Rocket League viewership, because there was one instance where Rival had to take over and do the mainstream production because they couldn't sort it out with NGE after the coronavirus had hit and they sent people home, didn't invite them back to studio. Rival Esports got the chance to do the mainstream matches on their channel, and Psyonix decided they're going to turn on drops to make up for the fact it wasn't going to be hosted on the main Rocket League channel, which it should have been hosted on the main Rocket League channel anyway, but fuck it, you know, whatever. Yep. Rival Esports did their thing. 10,000 viewers from the start for a shit couple of games. And it started to rise as people figured out, oh, there's drops on this channel. We've actually got fucking drops. And it's like, guys, this is not healthy numbers. There are not this is not conducive to healthy numbers and a healthy esports growth system. If the majority of people's sort of like, you know, interest is just getting free shit, like no one's going to tune in. No one's tuning in for Rocket League esports, are they? Everyone's tuning in so they can get the fucking decal. Like that's fucking that's damaging. That's potentially fraudulent. You know, saying we've got 20,000 viewers, we've got 20,000 bots is what we've got. You know, that's the reality of this situation. That like it's so like I always said that I don't think, you know, drops are a bad thing per se, so long as they're used in moderation. But since we have drops on every major tournament, like all it says to me is viewership inflation. Like that's fucking.
Even then, if you're not going to be there, like that's just the nature of it. Why would the drops never put on rival esports beforehand to try and help that viewership up on the B stream? You know, when the B stream was not conflicting with the mainstream at all. So it just questions there as well. Where is the mentality to all this? Why when you could try and bolster the numbers and try and get more eyes on your own content, because it is your own official tournament, maybe not on your own channel, why are you not doing that to try and help on out? Like, you're only shooting yourselves in the foot no matter which way you go.
Well, that's the problem, right? And now we're in a situation where like drops are so prominent and have been prominent for the past 4 years. It's like, you know, how do you get out of this situation? There is no easy answer to that, but it is fucking... It is terrible. It is terrible in that respect, you know, because like it says to me that most of the viewership for Rocket League esports isn't genuine, and we're in a much worse position than we actually make out to be. And that's further supported by these allegations that were raised that kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people. But there was an allegation thrown about that Psyonix may be embedding viewers into the Rocket League esports stream. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about here, there is a feature, obviously, on Twitch where you can take a stream and embed it into a website. And that will obviously give you, the necessary viewership within that website and such. Here's the problem. It has been known to be heavily exploitable by certain people because... there was an article posted on the subreddit which got downvoted to fuck because, in fairness, it was a pretty poorly written article that didn't make the point that the person wanted to make. And I kind of understand that what the writer was trying to say and what the writer was trying to do, because there are some suspicious spikes in RL viewership, especially for North America. But it was not written very well, and as a result, it kind of got panned off by the rest of the community. And she didn't do a great job of explaining herself in terms of what her point was. But she did send off to this website. If you go to streamspread.com, it's a website which basically, it advertises you pay for you pay them and they'll get your stream listed on embed links. Okay. And they advertise a number of people that they've already worked with. Among some of them, I'm not sure how true most of these are, but among some of them especially are the RLCS. Now, a lot of people might be asking, oh, what does that mean? What does it mean for us in the game, right? Well, for a start, it heavily implies that, again, viewership is inflated to a point that it's not really at a respectable... It implies that viewership is inflated a lot higher than it really should be, right? But here's the thing. Every time someone views a web page where the stream is on, they are counted as a viewer, and this is on autoplay streams. People have been caught out in esports in the past for this. Okay, Overwatch League, for example, they used to have their stream listed on the Cursed network, and that obviously raised their numbers for season 1 way beyond anything anybody expected. They got hundreds of thousands of people per thing, and it was a little bit suspicious to some people. They found out eventually it's because actually most of the viewers weren't even being watching on the Twitch page. It was actually due to the fact that we're listed on the Curse network. And recently, Flashpoint in CSGO also got caught out for hosting themselves on the Faceit website, which, it has their own circumstances about that. Whether or not it was legitimate, whether or not it was an accident, is still yet to be debated. But this is a service that's advertising that RLCS basically uses their service to, to put their stream on a thing. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you're viewing a stream unbeknownst to you, you're not really viewing it per se. You're not an official viewer, but you're counted in the numbers as a viewer. That's fraud. And I'll tell you how it's fraud, because Facebook are in a similar shit situation right now with the way that they count their viewers. Have you used Facebook, right, Bacon? You know, you use it probably
not for years, but yeah, sure.
Well, you know how when you used to scroll through Facebook, you used to like get some videos that pop up and play.
Yeah.
Well, basically, every time one of those videos auto played on your Facebook timeline, that counted as you being a viewer to that video. And every sponsor that Facebook have had through their systems, right, they have raised a lawsuit against them, and they've said, look, that's fraudulent. You have falsely advertised your numbers because those aren't real viewers. They are counted to inflate the numbers as high as possible. And Facebook are in a lot of shit for it. And this is basically the same fucking thing, because let's be real here. If you've got an autoplay stream at the bottom of like at the bottom of a website page, and someone's looking at the content of the website and not the stream, that's not a real viewer. But that's counted to the number regardless here. And it's like, then I get the question of how many people are bots looking for drops, and how many people are not even watching the stream actually as it stands.
Hence why, like, isn't it with Twitter, you've got to watch either the whole video or a certain amount of time of the video before it counts as a view on Twitter. But yeah, continue your point, sorry.
Well, that's basically my point right there. It's like, you know, this is also an industry-wide thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not just Rocket League specifically, but we're in a case where Rocket League is currently in like a bad spot with all the surrounding foundations about it. If it's real, and this is true, that StreamSpread are promoting Rocket League esports on their networks, like, there is reason to be really fucking concerned, because you take a look at all the sponsors we've had through RLCS history. You know, you take a look at guys like Snickers and Nissan, and, you know, all the sponsors that we've had from the mainstream level, you know, like not just from a fucking, like a small like CW sort of like Lenovo sort of thing, you know, or you know, we've had some major sponsors over the course of time. You know, we've obviously had, you know, Snickers come up, State Farm, HyperX, Mobile One. Who was the one with the deodorant? Who the fuck is it? I forget now.
Axe. Body spray.
No, not Axe.
Terry
Crews. Old Spice. That's it. You know, all big sponsors, all of whom have mysteriously disappeared. What's the chances they've caught wind of all this shit going on with the RLCS, okay? Like, if they're not getting return of investment, then this probably is the reason why they're not.
It's there, you look at it, and it's just, it feels very smoke and mirrors. Like, we have seen the biggest rise this season, to which just one of the more, you know, definitely less dubious, but one of the more understandable rises for me was Twitch front page. You generally get it for an hour, and you can see the number rise incredibly during that period. But why are we only seeing that very rarely? Why is Psyonix not trying to push a Twitch front page a lot more often, you know? And then when you compare, like, just... For me, the biggest one right there was the league play bump to regionals for EU definitely is massive. So there's so many different questions of how you can get massive peaks, not only within one season, but within, you know, a day.
It's just so fucking suspicious, right? And again, I've got no evidence to back up that Psyonix have done this, but it's like, you know, the fact that they're advertising them is one of the biggest things. The fact that they're advertising them is one of the biggest elements of the thing. Of this website implements to me that they've probably got some sort of thing in place. So I want to do some digging and find out for legitimacy, because like it's all over this website. And if it's real, if it's true, again, we have every reason to be concerned about the current status of Rocket League esports and the viewership, especially because it implies something that's not going on for real. And that is scary. It's really fucking scary, more so than anything else, because if it is true and sponsors all pull out because of that, then we're fucked. We're done. It's GG. Right there. And it's the same thing with every esport. Again, a lot of people have been caught out by it in the past, and, you know, they've taken dives because of it. Flashpoint have lost, you know, a lot of support in the CSGO community. Overwatch League has started to die slowly because of its lost trust in the community as a result of shit like this. And, you know, it's going to be the exact same thing with Psyonix. And I really would like some answers to this, because no one seems to be giving any answers to this. And that leads on to our final point here, Bacon. Communication with Psyonix. It was the thing that we left at the very end of our last State of the Scene address, where we said, look, we need more communication. not just for our sake, but for the sake of the scene, so we know what's going on, so people are informed. So that way, in a public setting, people are more inclined to join us, to join the scene, to join sponsorship, to join as a pro player, to join as a viewer, to join as anything, right? We haven't seen that. Even in spite of the open letter that went on Reddit, we saw a couple of improvements, but nothing significant, not quite the way that people wanted to see out of Rocket League esports.
Well, the improvements were acknowledgements. That's was just basically the improvement there, was acknowledging that something needs to change, but nothing has changed.
And that's the truth of the matter, is that's the way that Psyonix approach this shit. They go with an approach of, look, like, you know, we'll make a change, but we'll let you know soon. And then they never let you know. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this story that we had with the pro players asking for, you know, information from Psyonix and getting a PR response won't go anywhere. It won't surprise me at all. I don't think it surprises anybody at this stage. It's gotten to a point now where I'm genuinely worried about the game, and I'm worried about the esports scene. I don't do these sorts of shows that I give sort of doom and gloom without saying, look, right, like there's something going on here. And I don't say this in a light sort of sense. You know, I'm being serious. Like, there is something very concerning with the state of Rocket League right now, and a lot of people seem to feel it. And I have a feeling a lot of people are ready to check out, you know? We've seen big community names like Gia from Drama a lot just sell his fucking, you know, Twitter to GG Recon. Trox has obviously left the scene. He's still supporting us behind the scenes at RLAfterShock, and for that, I'm very grateful to him for it. But, you know, and these guys aren't the only guys, you know? There's all sorts of people leaving in troves lately. And it's like, you know, like, when is it going to be a point where we start to consider leaving Bacon? You know, I'm probably close to that fucking factor already.
Yeah, closer than me, definitely. I know that. And it comes down to, we know there's meant to be some sort of announcement from Psyonix come up in the next couple of weeks. But we've had that in the past before, like been told that in the past before, and nothing has come on through. So it's once again promised that there is something coming. But you're getting to a point now where you just dismiss it, you know? It's harsh. I hope it's true that the next few weeks we're going to get, you know, the redemption that's needed. Finally, who knows? Like, there was the whole thing of, you know, Scheist listening on his Twitter that he's no longer, like, is, you know, working for Epic Games, no longer Psyonix. Hopefully Epic has stepped in earlier because of everything that's going on, and then there's going to be that revamp we need, you know, esports wise. That's what you hope. Are we expecting it? No, absolutely not.
And again, I knew this episode would give me a bit of a downer, but like, given the places that we've gone so far in this state of the scene address, like, I don't know if we'll be doing one of these in 2021. Honestly, Bacon. Like, I'll be real with you. Like, I still want to keep doing the podcast. I still hope that we can do a State of the Scene address in 2021. I still want to hope we can keep doing stuff like aftershock.com. But honestly, like, if the Rocket League esports scene died in that time, it would not surprise me. I'm expecting at some point there will be a mass exodus of significant people just to leave the fucking space, because like, we're in deep shit. Okay. More so than we were last year. You know, we were at a critical point last year. I said that we need to start improving and growing, and I don't think we've done that to this point. And there's so much other shit that's come up since that point, you know, with the viewership, with, you know, the lack of communication, with, you know, organizations considering the leaving, even in spite of the fact that we've got, you know, in spite of the fact we've got stuff that they've asked for, like in-game items, in spite of and stuff that, you know, where the esports manager at Psyonix said, I don't care if organizations leave, on a fucking public interview. Like, what is this? Like, what is this?
And the thing is, silver lining time, Jay, because, you know, we're all getting a little bit depressed with all that. Everything is redeemable still. We're not past, like the point of being critical mass is that it either booms off even more or it falls, and we can turn things around. Or, sorry, not we, as in me and you, Jay. It does all come down to Psyonix.
It all comes down to Psyonix. Like,
it's all from the top, and they can change
it. I genuinely wish that we had some level of control in the community, because I feel like if the esports scene was handed off to other people, we would be tier 1. I still believe it. That's the reason why I still keep doing this fucking show. It's because I believe that the esports scene will be tier 1. I believe that Rocket League esports can be better than Counter-Strike and fucking, Dota 2 and Valorant even. Valorant's obviously taken off and having a bunch of esports tournaments put on in its fucking closed beta.
I believe that Rocket League is near enough the only game that after all this Corona stuff goes down, could have a respectable week in, week out spot on something like ESPN or Sky. Like, I believe that outside of all this madness where people are looking for something that is enough to patch, fill the gap, like let's just take all the Formula One stuff that's going on. As soon as, everything's back to normal, as soon as the regular season, say Formula One's back, that's not going to really be there. You'll go back to, it's just the esports guys doing their esports thing over there instead of trying to fill the gap with, the real talents. Rocket League, for me, is one of the only games where it's niche enough in what it's doing, is PG enough to have its own place alongside all the real sports on a weekly basis. And that's not going to happen with how Psyonix are treating it currently.
I'm scared, man. Like, I fear that we won't be here in a year's time. And, Rocket League has persevered and done so much, but I don't know how long we can survive, dude. Like, I'm really fucking depressed after this show.
I'm hoping, for me right now, the Corona stuff and definitely Intel World Open shutting down was the wake-up call that Psyonix needed. That their way of running things is not sustainable. It is not going to work. I'm hoping that is the wake-up call that they needed to suddenly go, like we were saying, they're not looking further than 6 months, that they suddenly went, oh shit, a plan falls through and we're fucked. Like, that is what they needed. And like we said, considering that we know that in the next few weeks, there is going to be another response is of 2 weeks back, so it could be a lot sooner than we think. Definitely, the week after Spring Series has ended in EU, that's when I'm expecting something to come through. I'm hoping that it is going to be a whole restructure, not necessarily to the RLCS, but that third thing put in, but more sustainability to the entire scene is put down. That's what I'm hoping. Like I said, do we expect it?
Honestly, no. I wouldn't hold my breath on that respect. But
exactly.
Let's end the show before I put myself on suicide watch, okay? Because that's what this kind of fucking episode is. And if you have been depressed, then I do apologize, but you can go to our official complaints line at RLAfterShock on Twitter, where you can let us know that you have been depressed by the realities of Rocket League esports.
Hopefully community nights come through and we can all try and cheer each other up.
I'm going to ping Dex about that, to be honest, because I could use some pick-me-up and a great opportunity to rekindle my love for this game, because I've started to lose so much faith in the last few months, in the last year. But again, all that's going down on @RLAfterShock on Twitter, as well as RLAftershock.com, where we'll be publishing more news as and when we receive it. It's been a little bit quiet on my end. I've been looking to do some more reporting, but I've been busy with CSGO. So I'm just going to keep working on that until eventually I get some time.
I'm the features guy, so I don't touch reports. Like, I would just butcher them something rotten. Like, a report would be less of a paragraph and more like an essay. So I'm not allowed to go near them, am I, Jay?
Mate, for those of you who want a little bit of peek behind the scenes at aftershock.com, Bacon's top 10 rankings was fucking so long and rambly, I edited it down. I had to go through and edit it for him. It got slashed to pieces. It was fucking unreadable beyond belief. But yeah, that's at the faces. I mean, I was going to do a feature about the lineage of Rick's Ronde, but I haven't got around to styling that one up, so I might go ahead and do that later.
His career's not over yet, please, no.
No, but here's the thing, him leaving Triple Trouble ends a lineage he's been carrying since fucking Reason Gaming. So I was going to do a little bit about that, and how the team now no longer has any of the elements that started things off back from Gfinity Season 2. So that's a topic for another day. I'll sort that out another point. Again, I've got a lot of casting to do, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready for that. We've got TCS in a bit, Bacon. Still some tournaments going on outside. Sorry?
3 hours. 2 hours. 2 hours.
No, 2 hours. 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours, 15 minutes as of us recording this very moment here. So, you're going to go ahead and watch that at twitch.tv/TCS Esports League. It's going to be fun times. I haven't got a green screen today, Bacon, so you're going to get to see all my glorious office. But yes, of course, if you want to catch more from RLAfterShock, of course, you can go ahead and join the Discord. Show notes and video descriptions as usual. You can go ahead and join us. We've got some community nights coming up soon. Hopefully we can play some Rocket League and other video games in shit. If you've got Valorant as well, I know that we've been doing some community nights for that as well. So I want to get involved in some of those, assuming my PC gets fixed soon. That's all for you to go ahead and join up. As well as that, follow the podcast on Twitch, twitch.tv/RLAfterShock, where hopefully we can get some live episodes going when shit's not so busy with me in CSGO. As well as that, the podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and most other audio distribution platforms. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock to find your favorite platform and request your favorite way to listen. I'm hoping next week's episode will be a lot more on the positive side, as we do have the European Spring Series to cover. No, we don't actually. We've got bubble scene stuff. All right, well, bubble scene stuff. Then we'll do the Nice Cactus weeklies and the and the Rising Stars Cup, or the Superstar League, I should say. But until that point, though, Bacon, have you got any final words for end off for this week?
Well, I'm just loving. So if people didn't see it, Endless Khan did the longest
Endless
game.
Khan?
Sorry, Endless Khan? What am I saying? Sunless Khan did the longest game of Rocket League ever, which then got smashed by the Italian Rocket League community, which is beautiful. God. I now put out the challenge. There is a gauntlet to throw down by every single community to make the longest game of Rocket League, and we just keep on going, dude. We just keep on going. I want to see
this,
that.
Right? Do you want to do an Aftershock edition? Do you want to do an Aftershock edition? We could try it,
yes. Why not?
All right, then let's fucking do it. We'll do the RLAfterShock longest running game ever, and we'll stream it live on Twitch. So keep your eyes on that shit. But for now, we're going to get off your screens.
Thing is, Jay, though, sorry, before you get in that, we're going to give it a little bit of time just to see if anyone does try and pip it before us, because you always want to be relevant. So we'll take a little time planning it, and we'll try and, like, you got to beat it by like over an hour to try and really set a tone for it.
Do you think you can possibly get your hands on one of those what are they called, Iron servers or something like that? They have like a special server that they use for RLCS games. And Son has used that for his, to the point where he went from a 2-hour average when he was testing it in matchmaking to 11 fucking hours of game time.
I could probably, I know a few people. We can do it.
Well, I'll let you sort that out, Bacon. If you can get that together, then I will absolutely do that, and I'll see if I can throw up a fucking, a charity thing or something. I don't know. We'll work on it. Anyways, for till that point, though, until next week's show, we're going to get off your screens, out of your ears. So make sure you stay safe out there with all the virus and shit going on, and make sure you brace yourself for the next edition of the Aftershock.